passion and kinship for thousands of years, and we commit to working in partnership with the community. We recognise our shared history and will continue to work in partnership to provide a foundation for building a shared future with our Kabi and Unibara people in looking after our land. We pay respect to the traditional owners of the Statutory Coast and to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge the important role our First Nations people continue to play within our Sunshine Coast community. Together, we are all.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Please be seated. I note that we are all in attendance here this morning. Lovely to see you all. So we move to item 4. Councillors, I remind you of the requirements of the Local Government Act of 2009, which sets out how councillors' conflicts of interest are managed in local government matters, noting that Chapter 5B of the Act does not apply if the matter is solely or relates solely to the making of levy or levying of rates and charges, or the fixing of a cost recovery fee, or the preparation, adoption or amendment of a budget for the local government, or preparing, adopting or amending a document prescribed by regulation that the local government is required to prepare or adopt under a Local Government Act. Okay, so moving to this morning's report, I welcome Ms. Rudd to present item 5.1, Budget 2026-27, Related Policies and Matters. Welcome to you.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, Mr. CEO, members of the in the gallery and members of the public in the gallery and those who've joined us online. This presentation relates to item 5.1, Budget 26-27, Related Policies and Matters. It seeks adoption of 4 items for the 26-27 financial year: Environment Levy, Arts and Heritage Levy, Transport Levy, and the Prescribed Services Charge Plan number 4. The levies are separate charges applied across all rateable land, and the Prescribed Services Charge Plan is charged in accordance with the Maroochydore City Centre Infrastructure Agreement. The values of the charges will be confirmed through the 26-27 budget adoption. Starting with the Environment Levy. This supports protection and improvement of the region's natural environment through land acquisition, major projects, community programs and environmental management. This year, the policy allows a temporary pause in land acquisition funding and adds recognition of coastal resilience. The Arts and Heritage Levy supports local culture, creative industries and heritage and conservation. Updates include revised funding allocations, a new facility development fund, expanded heritage funding, and a clearer approach to managing unspent funds. The Transport Levy supports delivery of a safe, connected and sustainable transport network. Key changes including recognising active transport as a core focus, removing annual contributions to the Transport Futures Fund, and retaining unspent funds to support future priorities. Finally, the Prescribed Services Charge Plan. This ensures Council can recover the cost of specialised waste services in the Maroochydore City Centre, in line with the existing infrastructure agreement. The recommendations are to receive and note the report and adopt the policies and plans attached to the report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, can I have a mover for this item? Councillor Hungerford, and a seconder, Councillor Broderick. Thank you. Councillor Hungerford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. These policies need to be formality, environment, living, arts, heritage transport. Last year, the end of the year, to December 2025, support that uphold their ability to adopt.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Suarez.
Madam Mayor. Yes, that's take a review of the three policies, and the levies funds have been reviewed to make sure that achieving value for money and community I'll just speak specifically to the environment levy policy, which has temporarily for 3 years. While the course provides an opportunity for further support delivery outcomes, while it also recognises current challenges to identify elevated poverty. Funding for land acquisition has been redirected to further support budget activities and also other environmental programs. However, the purpose of acquisition is the same, with the intention to protect, consolidate and connect. In consolidation and connection, we often create new habitat areas. And the strategic importance of establishing new habitat areas lies in the ability to support the take offset requirements that are associated with non-construction. To maintain an adequate supply of suitable land use offsets remain critical. Delays in land acquisition may create constraints to deliver offset obligations within the region and could also limit the ability to obtain associated offset revenue that contribute to council's general investment. While acquisitions remain a critical tool for protecting biodiversity, strengthening habitat continuity and planning for ecological resilience, it is why the pause is to no strategic significant land acquisition opportunities arise. Council does have an amount of carryover acquisition funding available, and the policy allows for additional funds to be borrowed. While it is regrettable to pause the acquisition program, a period of consolidation provides the opportunity for us to refine our priorities and ensure that future acquisitions are targeted, cost-effective, and aligned with our long-term goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we've got some questions, actually just one mainly. We're talking about ability development funding. Could you describe what that is and how it is used and give it to you in relation to in order for the story?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Broderick. Through the Chair, I will direct that to Jodie Fielding, our Director of Community Strengthening, if that's possible, please.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Fielding, to the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to take it on notice and hopefully get a response to you in the next few minutes, if that's okay. But it's my understanding it is different to the collection floor, which is a separate fund, but I believe it's for heritage buildings. But I would just like to confirm that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm sure you know how much
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bunnag. To you, Madam Mayor. As at 30th of June 2025, there was $4.3 million balance for the restricted cash transport levy. And that spend is monitored on a monthly basis, and as part of the end of financial year process will be reconciled as at 30 June 2026.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. For work budget funding for the intent of that get an update on where that's at. What is
Thank you. Question through you, Madam Mayor. That's the detail that I would have to take on later.
thank
Just a moment.
Oh.
Councillor Bonnet.
Apologies.
Ms Robinson, our Director of Sustainable Growth and Planning, will come forward with this.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bonnet, and through you, Madam Mayor. Just in regards to the Majimba Beach pedestrian crossings, we had $50,000 in the 26-27 financial year budget and $500,000 in the 27-28 financial year budget. They were approved, but councillors, and there might be a few questions around vulnerable persons program, but there's been a reassessment of the criteria of the vulnerable persons program, and as a result, the evaluation criteria, as a result, we've put some of those on hold, and this is one of the projects being caught up in that hold. What we will be doing is coming back to council on a new prioritisation framework, and also which pedestrian crossings will be going into that new program for the next financial year. Thank you.
you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. Great. I have a question I have in relation to the environment program. There is an allocation towards regional sand sourcing and nourishment program state, which the $694,000 investment that will investigate the impact of sand nourishment on other coastal locations, including Mooloolaba. And just wanting to understand, as part of that program review, will that look at the impacts of sand nourishment at Mooloolaba on other areas of the Sunshine Coast, including North Shore and North Shore to Yillimba?
Thank you. Mr Whittaker, our Director of Infrastructure and Natural Assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. That study is a regional study, so that will include the whole coastal environment for the Sunshine Coast.
Thank you very much. I might speak to now. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the officers for responding to those questions. In terms of the transport levy, I'll confine my remarks to that. Our vulnerable persons program, in terms of pedestrian safety improvements, has been something that has been well received by the community, and the increased investment that we have seen in this financial year, I think, is encouraging and will give us the opportunity to progress projects that have been long awaited, particularly things like the Majimba Beach raised pedestrian crossing, given the fact that we just introduced Ride Store at Pacific Paradise State School, and the importance of actually providing a very safe and connected transport network for people getting to and from school and parts of the community is something that obviously every councillor in this building is passionate about, giving our unanimous support for the active transport plan at the last meeting. So I'm looking forward to seeing, as Ms Robinson alluded to, the outcomes of the vulnerable persons program review and how that actually will allocate funding towards those really important crossings that have been talked about for a long time and just simply haven't been adequately funded. So I commend the transport levy, I commend the environment levy, arts and heritage policy, and also looking forward to the outcomes of that sand management review, because we have had quite a lot of feedback from residents, particularly north of the Murray River, regarding the impacts of sand management at Mooloolaba on our beaches in that area. So look forward to what the outcomes of that study are.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Burns.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, through you. Thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to raise, I guess, in support of the environmental particularly, but on the weekend I was able to attend the Koala Restoration and Reforesting program alongside Madam Mayor out of Kenilworth on one of our reserve areas. That was actually, the reserve area was actually purchased with the environment 2 years ago, and it's an exceptional piece of land, 200 acres and so on, connecting to broader national park and other reserves, creating a really connected, strong corridor, which is actually seeing the second strongest, healthiest population of koalas here on Sunshine Coast in the Koala Reserve at Kenilworth. It was an exceptional program, and on Saturday we were actually able to plant habitat trees for koalas into the future on this reserve, and all of that was done in partnership with our state colleagues, the Department of Environment, Tourism, Science and Innovation. It was done in partnership with Healthy Land and Water. It was done in partnership with the University of the Sunshine Coast, And our contributions through the environment levy actually support this work to conserve koala populations, and not just conserve, but see them increase and improve in health. So the environment levy is a very well considered levy, and it really does deliver significant on-the-ground benefits for this region. That was just one example over the weekend, and I really was encouraged to see it. Further to that, though, we have 60 plus kilometres of coastline as a regional council. We know that for our coastline, the coastal resilience of our community is significant. Our dune systems really matter. Our areas around Golden Beach, Maroochydore, where we have low-lying areas that are really prone to climate impacts as rising sea level, storm tides, surges, increased flooding risk. It becomes vitally important that we as a region have protective factors at play to build the resilience of our coastal communities. And I'm really delighted to see that in this year, the environment levy will have a particular focus on ensuring the stability and resilience of those areas. It's an important part of who we are, and not just economically from a tourism space, but socially from a livability space, this matters. I was also really delighted to see particular focus this year in the transport levy around active transport infrastructure. So to help people walk, roll, cycle around the region and move around more safely, this stuff matters. And so the transport levy is delivering on the ground impact, and as Councillor Bunag has already explained through the review of the VPP, we will actually continue to ensure improved access for people to move around this region safely in a way that's vibrant, creates healthy, active communities, and is totally in line with what our community expects. So I'm really encouraged to see those slight changes this year and look forward in the future to seeing the environment levy land acquisition element reinstated as needed. Thanks, Madam.
Thanks, Councillor Burns. It was great to be out planting trees with our community on the weekend, and I didn't get to see a koala, though I do believe they are in the trees there, and it's fantastic. Councillor Lansford.
Thank you, and through the chair, yes, koalas obviously much loved species on the coast, but yeah, the way to track them is through infrared cameras. There's some wonderful footage of koalas across our region. Just a question first before I put the recommendation, please. Just with last year's 25-26 budget, we had an invasive weed project. We had a passionate councillor from the hinterland requesting the need to improve our weed management and control. I noticed in this year's obviously budget to be adopted is that we have halved that weed management project, but actually specifically identified around the Maloney Community project and also the stockpile for the corner Caramel. And I was just going to make a comment in regards to, I know we're talking about environment level here, but crackweed is a really big problem. As I drive around the Sunshine Coast, we're seeing that even more. And I hope that dealing with this weed issue can benefit the coast if we look at other types of pesticides or how we deal with that to actually remove those crackweeds from the meeting script. The other thing I'd just like to speak to now, Madam Mayor, is the transport levy, and I really just want to thank. Sorry, if there's a question, you want to comment on that? I was really just making that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. So you asking a question? Are you speaking? Was there a question there?
Well, it's probably not. It's really not appropriate today. I'm sure the team's working on that behind the scenes. I just wanted to make that comment for the rest of the council and our public out there that we are working behind the scenes to deal with that. I just want to reflect on the transport levy, and I just want to thank fellow councillors in the room for the support of our sand fine. And we see a line item in there for our speed activated monitoring signs. And speeding is one of our pet hates around our localities on the coast. That line item in there is really well. And I look forward to supporting this recommendation as well.
Thank you, Councillor Lansford. Councillor Law.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I would speak in support of the motion regarding our levy. Briefly to mention the arts and heritage levy, which is an important part of delivering for the Sunshine Coast
for delivering powerful elements to support our community in many things that they do day by day. And this levy will see us to be able to implement the heritage plan and also to implement the arts and creative plan. Two essential documents that help us do what it is for our communities in many, many different ways. All of the levies have undergone an extensive review, and you've heard some of the highlights and elements from my colleagues as to why we should continue to support these levies, to focus on and deliver some really important priorities that are often beyond what we would normally be able to do. So we've undergone a really important review, and I'm looking forward to implementing these and seeing the benefits come to all of us. And we've also heard around the review of the SAM nourishment program. And it will be really good to see the results and the outcomes of that review and how that may help us in our advocacy to particularly the federal government around policies they may want to look at around the federal state. Because we need to seek and find revenue to support us to be able to do more. We've heard within our environment levy that we're going to pause the purchase of essential land to help our environment to continue to grow and be protected. And advocacy around those sorts of ideas can really help us in. So I look forward to that review as well to help in that advocacy, and I will be doing this today in the Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Law. You're right. The environment levy and the purchase of missing links is important. Our beaches are very important to our community. Transport, getting around, protecting our vulnerable pedestrians, and of course our arts and heritage reflect our essence. So wonderful summary there. Councillor Hungerford, would you like to close? No. Okay. Councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you. Moving to item 5.2, and it's Ms. Flood again. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Agenda item 5.2 covers the 26-27 investment debt and revenue policies. These policies are required to be prepared and adopted each year under the Local Government Regulation and Local Government Act. The revenue policy also forms part of the annual budget preparation and adoption process. So together, they support Council's overall financial management framework. There are no changes to the investment policy this year. The policy continues to focus on protecting capital first, with returns achieved within strict risk limits. Investments are limited to approved, highly rated institutions under legislation with no derivatives, no foreign currency exposure, and short-term limits of no more than 2 years. The approach remains conservative, diversified, and aligned to the Bloomberg Ausbond Bill Index. The debt policy ensures borrowing supports long-term financial sustainability. Minor updates to the policy include extending the typical debt term from 12 to 15 years and refining working capital settings. Borrowings are limited to capital work, aligned to asset life, with no borrowing for operation. All decisions are guided by long-term forecasts, with debt levels monitored against sustainability indicators. A short-term working capital facility of 50 million is available to council to assist with short-term cash flow requirements. It can only be used for operational liquidity management purposes, with all drawdowns repaid in full within 6 months. The revenue policy outlines the principles that guide how council raises revenue in a fair and sustainable way. It covers the levying of rates and charges, the application of concessions, recovery of overdue amounts, cost recovery practices, and the funding of infrastructure through development contributions. This policy is reviewed annually and must be adopted prior to the annual budget. This year it's been updated with minor changes, including an increased focus on financial sustainability and the introduction of a cost of living concession. The underlying principles remain unchanged, equity, efficiency, consistency, clarity, and flexibility. The policy also maintains a focus on targeted concession, confirms a general approach of full cost recovery for fees, and ensures developers contribute appropriately to infrastructure required to service growth. The recommendation is to note the report and adopt the investment debt and revenue policies for 26-27.
Thank you, councillors. May I have someone move the item? Councillor Broderick, and seconder, Councillor Bunag. Thank you. Now, councillors, just noting that we have technical difficulties and we're receiving feedback that the microphones are not picking up your speaking when you're standing. So either could you please stand and lean over and speak loudly into the microphone, or I am prepared to allow you to sit and speak so that you can be closer to the microphone as we go forward, or to stand, and obviously that will have an impact on audio. So we'll see how that goes. We are a little in uncharted territory here and we'll just receive feedback as we go. Now, Councillor Broderick, would you like to speak to this motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor. This item relates to the adoption of our statutory investments, debts and revenue policies for the 26-27 financial year. So we have to do this in order to get the budget happening. So these policies are a fundamental part of Council's financial framework. They're required under legislation and sit at the heart of how we responsibly manage public funds on behalf of our community. While they are technical in nature, their purpose is straightforward: to ensure that we are managing our finances in a way that is sustainable, transparent and fair. Together, these policies guide how we invest council funds prudently, manage borrowing responsibly and with clear focus on long-term sustainability, and raise revenue in a way that is equitable, consistent and understandable for our community. Importantly, they reinforce our priority for financial stability and good governance, protecting council's position now and in the future. The updates this year are relatively minor but meaningful. They include refinements to our debt settings to support long-term planning and adjustments within the revenue policy that recognise cost of living pressures while maintaining fairness across the community. Ultimately, these policies ensure that when we come to adopt our budget, it is built on a sound, responsible and legislatively compliant financial foundation. In saying that, I just have a couple of questions before handing over to my colleagues for both their questions and discussions, Madam Mayor. Could you talk us through the changes in the debt policy? And I just want to confirm that any of the operational borrowings that we have to be paid up within the 6 months. So it's not something that we need over.
There's a question, Councillor Broderick, through you, Madam Mayor, if that's correct. The working capital facility, anything that's drawn down, it must be repaid within 6 months. And whilst it's technically borrowing, it really is going to be used as a cash flow tool. We rate twice a year, and sometimes our expenditure doesn't match evenly within those rate runs. So it is really just a way of managing our liquidity in a short-term capacity.
And when we're saying short-term, we're expecting that this won't go on year after year.
That's the plan. And we've only just had it approved in April, and we haven't drawn down and won't need to in the short term.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll hand over to Stephen.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Councillor Hungerford.
That makes it better for the audio.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we've got three here tied together. I don't have a problem with investment in revenue. With that one, I do have concerns to explain those. If you look at the table of proposed loan borrowings for 2030, and you add those together, that comes to $210 million. Currently got 113 million. That's including the 66 million being drawn during this month. To me, that's a 50% increase. What further complicates it is going from a 12-year to 15-year loan. That increases the interest burden on that loan.
that is to come from revenue rates. And now looking at going for borrowing for depreciating expenditure, depreciating assets. Now to put this in simple terms, let's compare two loan borrowings, a property, a residence, and a brand new car. When you pay the property down, it's appreciating in value, that's an appreciating asset. And the rest of the scenario is where that asset's appreciation is growing faster than inflation, that's increasing your equity. So when you look at the car, it depreciates each year. So it's worth less and less, even though you're paying it off. So you've got the interest rate cost on that, plus the depreciation cost, because you've got very little equity at the end of the day. You either need substantial revenue to replace that asset, or an even larger loan borrowing, because the inflation rate added over that same time has increased the cost you to replace that asset. So that's a further burden. So that concerns me. So if you look at the repayments on the borrowing, if you're on page 223, from 2026 to 2030, 28.2 million to proposed 39.3, that's an $11 million increase in borrowing, repayments on those borrowings. That has to be met by revenue. That puts further pressure on rates over time. So that's an $11 million increase over that 5-year period. I support this budget because we're heading in the right direction at the moment. They're driving down borrowings from this year's 66 million down to 21. I want to see us continue that into the future. And we're driving deficits down. We've gone from 38 million down to now 13 this year, and we're looking at driving it down to just over 7 this year. That's the right direction. I want to see us continue. So what I'm saying is, rather than look at borrowings, I'd rather see us continue to focus on driving down capital and operational expenditure, and we'd like to move to those borrowings in the future more sustainably. And of course, we're working towards a positive operating result by 2028. I want to see us maintain that and achieve that and drive down the need for further borrowings in the future. So that to me is the operating one. If you're going to rely on drawing that down for the shortfall in the first place, you go to debt. And that the next one means you're going to have even less revenue by the time you get to the end of the financial year, you may need to draw down the loan. It becomes a cascading effect. So that one there I'm a little bit concerned with. And I do note on page 225, the unrestricted cash expenditure cover ratio in the months going from 1.9 to 4 months over that same period to 2030. But written in there is the unutilised cash expense cover ratio includes 50 million working capital facility. If you didn't have that there, what would that do to those figures there? So they're the things I'm looking at in the future. We're heading in the right direction at the moment. This budget I'll support because we're heading, I didn't vote for the budget last year because I didn't believe we were there. This time I think we're on the right trajectory, but we need to be focused into the future to drive down those expenditures so we don't have to rely on loan borrowing for being proposed here. And I'll advocate very strongly through the next budget process that we do that and we do shy away from having to have those sort of borrowings, because a 50% increase in debt over 5 years is not where I want to be. Respectfully, I can't support that, and I'll advocate strongly in the future budgets. We don't do that. Here's a pity these three are tied in together. There's only one I've got issue with. There's something I believe we can work with. Focus, and we have that focus and discipline in the future, we can get that. So respectfully, I can't support the debt policy in its current form.
Thank you, Councillor, for making that clear. And as you mentioned, there are a lot of other policies the three are tied in together. Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might adopt the sitting method as well to ensure people can hear. I have, through the chair, I guess a little bit of a different view in terms of our debt policy, and I'll talk to that in a moment. I would like to just talk about our revenue policy in the first instance. One of the concerns that I have about it, and I just want to preface, I'll be voting in favour of these recommendations, is that we have a revenue policy that, as one of the principles of actually capturing revenue, allows for flexibility. And I actually don't think that we have policy setting in this organisation that when someone is unable to pay rates because of a medical concern or an event or some other circumstance, we actually then charge them interest. And we don't currently have a mechanism to ensure that people, through no fault of their own, are able to actually come and talk to council. And the CEO could have had the authority and power to actually allow that interest to be waived. And this is something that I raised last year after I had a resident suffer a stroke, and she was hospitalised and unable to pay her rates on time, and yet we still charged her interest on that late payment. And I've asked the organisation to review the policy framework around that. And I'll be very upfront, I'm disappointed that that hasn't happened given the amount of time that has been allowed to elapse between that event and now. But I'm an optimist and confident that we will get there at some point. So I will support the revenue policy. In terms of the debt policy, it's a little bit different to Councillor Hunsford in the sense that if we actually look at our schedule of proposed external borrowings into the future, $21 million in 2027, the next financial year, $44 million, and then $11.7 million. That is an extraordinary low amount of debt to actually been taking on. And I don't want to give too much away about what the budget actually says in terms of capital works programs at that point, but that would be an enormous amount of capital works expenditure, I believe, in that financial year, supported by very little debt. And I actually think when we look at the measures of financial sustainability in the budget process on the last agenda item, we are actually going the right way in terms of our debt. And I'd make the argument that we could probably afford to take on more debt to fund some of the projects that we know we're going to need to deliver ahead of the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And I have two very young daughters, and it's in the back of my mind ensuring that we are not burdening future generations with unnecessary debt. But equally, we should not be burdening ratepayers in the here and now with having to saddle all of the costs of paying for infrastructure that future generations will be getting the benefit of utilising. Things like roads, things like indoor sports centres, because they are generational projects that require funding to large degrees. So I support the policies. I think we're going in the right direction in terms of debt. I'd be actually happy for us to take on more to fund those generational projects, and I'll be supporting this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Broderick, would you like to pose?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions just to finish up, if that's okay. There's in one of the policies and in the appendix, we talk about a cost of living in the locality concession that's being added this year. Could you please explain that a little further for us?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Broderick. Through you, Madam Mayor, and just bear with me while I get the policy. It's a new edition, so making sure I'm using the right terminology. Yes, it gives council the discretion to apply that concession where those circumstances are met. Yes, it's a new, maybe please better answering that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Coming to the microphone is our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Parson. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Broderick. We've amended the revenue policy to capture the adjustments to the local government regulations. And in December last year, the state government made a change to recognise that cost of living basis. So council can only establish concessions on prescribed reasons, and they're outlined in the local government regulation. So the state government added an additional reason for the cost of living in a locality. So council could take account of certain information and deem a particular area or suburb or region to be suffering a hardship. It might be on the back of a climatic event or something like that, and that council could determine to apply a concession on that broad-based basis. Prior to that, the requirements required more specific and explicit conditions for a concession to be levied. So it provides us that flexibility to apply on a more broader basis.
Thank you. And just following on from that, I'm not sure who would like to answer this, but just given that we've been talking about our debt and the debt policy, are you confident that we're heading in the right direction as far as our loans and our borrowing goes? And do we have sufficient capacity to ensure that we're paying that off in due time?
Thanks for the question. Councillor Broderick, to you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I do. We've invested quite a lot in reviewing the capital program and looking at the funding for that. We've got significant benefit from funding from both state and federal government over the next couple of years to support our capital program, and we are taking that up with borrowings as and when we need to, but certainly, as Councillor Bunney pointed out, the ratios are headed in the right direction as we address our financial result and our operating cash flows. So, but borrowings are an important part of our program to address the generational equity issues and the investment in the infrastructure for the community.
Great, and that wraps up mine very nicely. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and
Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, councillors, I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour. Councillors Broderick, Landsberg, Burns, Natoli, Johnston, Dixon, Bunnag, Suarez, Law and Mayor Natoli. Those against, Councillor Hungerford. The motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Councillors, item 5.3 today is the Register of General Cost Recovery Fees and Commercial Charges, and Ms. Rudd will present this item as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 5.3 presents the 26-27 Register of General Cost Recovery Fees and Commercial Charges for adoption to take effect from the 1st of July 2026. Under the Local Government Act, fees fall into two categories: cost recovery and commercial. Cost recovery fees relate to specific services like licences, permits or information requests, and these must be set at or below the cost of providing these services. Commercial charges are set with market conditions in mind and aren't limited to cost. For 26-27, a 6% increase has generally been applied as the base assumption to these fees. They're expected to generate around $86 million in revenue. In total, there are just over 1,500 fees across 34 service areas, including 250 cost recovery fees and 1,300 commercial charges. Key changes this year include 78 fees increasing above the 6% parameter, 61 new fees and 31 fees removed. Cost recovery fees continue to be reviewed using the activity-based costing methodology to make sure they align with legislation. The recommendation is that councillors receive and note the report, adopt the fees set out in the attached register, resolve that for cost recovery fees, the applicant is responsible for payment and that the fee is payable at or before the time the application is lodged, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to amend commercial charges and to set a reasonable fee based on cost recovery principles where a price on application applies. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Rudd. Councillors, can I have a mover for the motion, Councillor Hungerford, and a seconder, Councillor Broderick? Councillor Hungerford. Yes.
This is a very important one to retrieve the costs of those fees and services. Otherwise, they're drain against revenue and general budget. And that puts the means the ratepayer then subsidising the true cost of delivering that service. So this is a very important one for us to maintain financial sustainability. This council is a very important step.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Dixon.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. Hopefully the mic can pick me up pretty well. I will be supporting this today. However, I just want it noted for the record that I am very uncomfortable around the increase in dog registration fees. I did put this point forward at the councillor budget workshop. So essentially, you're going from a $30 charge to a 63 for a D6 microchip animal. I believe the community will not wear that lightly, and in fact, it's a significant increase in charge. But like these budget reports, we've got many different things to discuss. And on balance, I will be supporting the full document, as I've said earlier in this debate. However, I just want to raise that issue. And in fact, in many recent examples, the charge has only gone up several dollars. I've still received significant backlash from my local community on that. So I'll just raise that issue today and realise I am in the minority on that view.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question around the D6 dog registration. The proposed increase is to $63 for a D6 dog. Could I please get some information on what the intended service level changes are for people with pets?
For the question, Councillor Bunnag, through you, Madam Mayor. I will have to take that on notice unless Judy Fielding can answer.
Ms. Fielding will be coming. She's the Director of Community Strengthening on this. Thank you, Ms. Fielding.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. So these additional fees allow us to take on the existing operational costs that aren't funded through the restricted funding that we have. That includes new signage, animal management, preparing for growth of some infrastructure around the pound, and offsetting some of the proactive control and education services that we provide.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll speak to it now. Very much like Councillor Dixon, when this was raised with councillors, I was very opposed to this particular increase. As a dog owner myself, I think that pet owners are going to wonder what they're actually going to be getting more of, other than paying more for their registration. However, as Councillor Dixon has pointed out, this is one set of charges as part of a broader fees and charges mix, so I feel somewhat compelled to support it. However, if this was on its own, I would be absolutely voting against it. What I would say, though, is that for people who live in my division, it is a constant request for more animal management patrols in coastal areas, because what we see is an increasing amount of people doing the wrong thing, despite an increased provision for off-leash areas about to come into effect in Division 8 from July 1. So I find that difficult, but if people are asking for a greater level of service, which is what they are, then there is a greater level of cost associated with it. I would have much preferred that we had staggered this over time, given the increase. But the reality is that this is all encompassing these fees and charges. And as much as I would not like to support that particular line item, I'd basically be saying no to everything else.
So I'll support it with the caveat that if I could vote against that particular item, I would.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a follow-up question regarding the animal management fees. Are we obligated to only charge a cost recovery in that particular fee and charge?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Natoli. Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, it is a cost recovery charge.
So in other words, whatever we provide to manage animals, dogs and cats in public, all that money is used to basically manage.
That's correct.
Thank you. Just another question, and maybe this question can go to our Chief Financial Officer. I noticed that our caravan parks is more than a quarter of the amount of money that we actually receive from all of the charges, and considering the massive impacts of fuel and on people's habits, the changes that we've made, are you confident that we'll be able to achieve these sorts of figures in the next 12 months based with the geopolitical environment that we've got at the moment and the struggles that people have with cost of living pressures?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Natoli. Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm comfortable that officers have, put their mind to the circumstances at the moment. Unfortunately, we don't possess a crystal ball, and we can't foresee, how those conditions will continue to unfold over the next 12 months. But we do have in place a policy that provides us some flexibility on those fees and dynamic pricing principles there that allows us to adapt to the charges, in response to certain circumstances and peak times around that. We also have regard to the other caravan parks in the region when we set our fees and charges to ensure that we maintain a competitive pricing for the great service we offer in those parks on the beach.
Thank you. No further questions.
No further questions. Okay. Councillor Hungerford, would you like to close? No. Okay, I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Parsons. Thank you, Ms. Rudd. Councillors, we move to item 5.4 and Mr. Joyce will present this item, the Development Services Register of Cost Recovery Fees and Commercial Charges. Welcome, Mr. Joyce. Just if you can pull the microphone down, we're having audio issues, so we need to speak very loudly into the microphone today.
That's okay. Adjusted for short person now. So, morning, Madam Mayor, councillors and CEO. Today I'm presenting the proposed Development Services Register of Cost Recovery Fees and Commercial Charges for the 2026-27 financial year. Sorry, Okay, so this year, or we're expecting development activity to continue to be relatively consistent as it has for the previous financial years. Anticipation coming ahead in terms of trends is the new planning scheme may bring about additional applications this and when it is adopted, and also there's additional development activity relating to the Olympics. As development industry kind of ramps up, the things are sort of indirectly associated, increased housing and other commercial kind of operations. So we will see an uptake of applications in relation to those things. As you're aware, we as a department or the Development Services branch need to meet legislative timeframes and process applications in accordance with timeframes and have to be adequately resourced in order to do that. We are also working within a challenging market where there's a difficulty in terms of providing adequate numbers of suitably qualified people working for council. So that kind of sets out the sort of the trends and the challenges as we go forward into the next financial year. Under the Local Government Act 2009, council can set what are called cost recovery fees for services and processes of a development application. We have a statutory obligation to ensure that the fees that we recover don't exceed the costs to undertake the service. So of the thing or processes undertaken within our branch, approximately 70% of the work and functions that we do are fee generating. And on this slide there, you can see the list of those services. And in addition to that, we also undertake a number of non-fee paying services. The predominant one in there would be the appeals, tribunals and prosecutions component of what we do. So for updates to the next financial year charges, there's an average increase of 6% proposed for the majority of the fees that we charge. That's in accordance with increases to costs from staffing and the increase generally to the cost of providing the services. Any of those fees and services that are above and beyond that 6%, we'll now just give you a bit of a description of those. Generally, we've put a bit of a look across all of the fees and charges and look to simplify where there was some unnecessary complexity in those that kind of led to some confusion. In his instance, we've also formally adopted some changes that had already been operationalised, in one of them being where an applicant pays a duplicate fee, we no longer seek to retain an administrative fee when that happens. We've also clarified a number of fee refunds that were already working in relation to our minor change application in particular that had been complex due to the nature that there were sort of staggered fees depending on the extent of the changes. So it's just a clarification for more flat fees. And also we have simplified the fees for the plumbing and drainage refunds, which previously had been at 80 or 90%, depending on the complexity, and just changed to be the 85% refund. Some additional changes here in relation to pre-lodgement meetings. Again, simplification for a single flat fee of $1,020, allowing for attendance of up to 4 council officers. Previously, we had a flexible approach which enabled the applicant to determine who or the number of council officers attending, and sometimes that might not always have adhered to what was required or needed. So in order to make sure that we do provide adequate officers to attend all meetings, as well as not providing unnecessary support, we've set a flat fee rather. This also will cover the potential for pre-lodgement advice related to state facilitated development if that comes in. We've also removed the fee entirely for design advice meetings to encourage early engagement with council's design specialist. This off the back that we had a very small amount of uptake of that in the previous year. Similarly, with the planned ceiling, we only had 1 application made for that fee, and it's determined that other existing fees and services can make up for those instances where somebody wants to seek advice prior to submitting that, or that can be done just through written advice. Other services, a significant change is effectively the removal of the draft conditions service fee. It's proposed to be discontinued as it's noted that there's a real lack of efficiency and high administrative burden of this. That's not to say that we won't continue to provide the service, but it just won't charge for it. The service requires significant officer time at present, and there are risks that when someone makes a request and pays a fee, there's an expectation that assessment timeframes may well then be extended in order to provide the opportunity for that to occur when there's already a statutory process for negotiated decision notices in place to cover such instances. However, officers will continue to seek through best practice to work and provide draft conditions. However, it won't be because the applicant has paid a fee. That also removes the potential implications where someone is seeking to seek conditions in a situation where application might be proposed to be refused, and it kind of predetermines the outcome of the application. So just avoidance of those issues there. For this section, we're just talking of some of our minor applications for dwelling house and dual occupancies. Similarly, again, a simplification where a single fee is proposed instead of a minor and a major fee. Given our experience that from both instances, it took a similar amount of officer time to respond. So providing a clearer basis that's easy to understand for everyone. So reduced to $980 as opposed to $730 or $1,395. Similarly here, some fee clarity and simplification related to operational works fees, as there had been some confusion around the applicability of some of the different fees and when they become layered or stacked on top of each other. So we just want to ensure a consistent approach to ensure that we are obtaining a fee in all instances. So there's now separation and made clear for landscaping, veg clearing, where they're lodged just by themselves. not in association with a larger application where there used to kind of be add-ons. So this envisaged the situation where someone makes a single application for those and there's a fee of $365 for that. In addition, there's wording to clarify or capture the operational works under a variation request approval, as it wasn't explicitly stated, because there can be situations where that would occur and there's a fee clearly for that. In addition, we've looked at some of the pre-start meetings that we encourage applicants to have and made sure that there is a fee associated with with an operational works approvals, as there would be for a material change of use. Post-approval fee simplification, again, following from the theme, we streamlined the minor fee for changes to up to 5 conditions. So, or approve, this is for plumbing work. So again, there was different fees depending on how many conditions you wanted to change. So we're just making it it's more streamlined to make it clearer for everybody. The assessment level clarity there sets, as it states, that fees clarified where changes increase the level of assessment. The minimum fees of $5,230 or $7,884 will apply to reflect the additional requirements. And in addition, we've included additional fee for what we call a priority plumbing inspections. It's seen that there's often become more frequently where people have requested the same day inspection, and there's an additional fee that we now charge in order that we can provide that service where it's necessitated. Okay, that concludes my presentation. Thank you. And if there are any questions, happy to take those now.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Councillors, can I have someone move this motion? Councillor Dixon, and seconder, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, thank you to Mr. Joyce. That was a fantastic presentation. I don't think you've left much for councillors to talk on today, and that's a good thing. And Madam Mayor, one thing I've seen important year on year is that the team through development services are engaging with the industry. These are not just fees that they sit in the office and make up. In fact, I know regularly the team are out there speaking to the applicants, the consultants, the industry, and finding out how they can make the process better. And that's not just done at budget time. This is something that they're doing monthly. And I do appreciate that. The only thing that really wasn't touched on, and I thought it was a really important point, is the support for not-for-profits. And that's something that this council has done for many, many years, and particularly the investment support in Nambour around the entertainment precinct, the nighttime precinct. I think that's very, very important, particularly in a day and age and a time where we realise we need to support local business and industry, not just those people, but the people that are doing it tough on the ground. And that's those who give their time through not-for-profits to the community and assist members of our community. And I want to thank the team for doing that, because it would be very, very easy for council to cross those initiatives off and simply walk away. And we haven't done that at all. But there was a note that I wrote here, and it's about growth paying its way. That's exactly what these fees and charges are about. These are not about hurting the little people on the ground, the mums and dads, the local residents. This is about the development industry paying its way, so ratepayers don't need to subsidise development services. So that's essentially what we're doing. But the reality is we cannot charge more than what the service costs. It's a fee for service. Always interesting for us, though, Madam Mayor, is this council does fund our legal challenges, our battles. And in fact, that's something that is very difficult to forecast. We never know which applicant will take us to court. We never know the exact costs until those matters are settled. And in fact, that's one difficult element for us to keep up with, because we know it's really gazing into the crystal ball. And to that end, I am thankful for the work that the team are doing, and the fact that we can come to each budget process and say that hand on heart, we've spoken to the industry and we're charging what's fair. Mr. Joyce, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Any other councillors? No. Councillor Dixon, would you like to close? Anything further? No. Okay. I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Joyce and team. Thank you. Moving now to item 5.5, and Mr Flanagan will present the operational plan for 2026-27. Thank you. And please speak loudly into the microphone for us.
I will, and thank you, and good morning, Madam Mayor, council staff and members of the community. Today it's my pleasure to present for your consideration the operational plan for 2026-27. The plan proposed will cover the period from 1 July 26 through to 30 June 2027. The flashback, in February 2025, Council adopted the corporate plan, which would cover the 5-year period from 2025 to 30. This is Council's primary strategic document that sets out Council's visions, goals, priorities over a 5-year period. Each year, we then develop an operational plan that sets clear priorities for the financial year ahead, which essentially puts the corporate plan into action. Today's report presents to you the operational plan for 26-27, and it outlines 52 activities that includes programs, projects and initiatives that will be prioritised over the coming financial year to progress our commitments to the community. The operational plan includes Council's role for each activity and where we are working with community, volunteers, business, industry and other tiers of government to deliver. This understands that these partnerships are critical in delivering the aspirations for the region. The operational plan activities presented to you today are all proposed to be funded through the budget that will be considered as a separate agenda item today. The document provided is aligned to the corporate plan and has been shaped by a focus on 5 key areas around strengthening Council's long-term financial position to meet current and future generational needs, but completing the review of submissions and progressing the proposed planning scheme for Queensland Government consideration, building the foundations of a community-centred organisation that listens well and responds effectively to deliver valued outcomes, and embedding the governance and planning structures that position the Sunshine Coast to realise lasting economic, social and infrastructure benefit from the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games, as well as reviewing our approach to waste management with a new strategy that defines priorities for investment and collaboration. It's important to note that this document is a strategic document. It doesn't outline everything Council does, but in the back of the document it does list the 34 services which are critical to experiencing the Sunshine Coast region every day. If adopted, the operational plan will be cascaded through all levels of the organisation, from directorate to branch plans, right down to individual performance plans, to create strong alignment between our vision and goals, the work people do every day to achieve them, and assigning responsibility for delivery. The operational plan will also become the basis for the CEO's quarterly progress reports that are presented to Council and the community, as well as our annual reports. It is a legislated document, and the operational plan presented to you today meets all of Council's statutory requirements. Keep skipping forward, sorry. All of our legislative requirements. It is consistent with the budget, and it's being presented at the same day to ensure this occurs. It clearly demonstrates how we will progress implementation of the 5-year corporate plan, and it shows and through its delivery manages the most significant operational risk. This also gets monitored throughout the year through those quarterly reports. Madam Mayor, councillors and members of the community, the operational plan 26-27 is aligned to the corporate plan. It is consistent with the budget that is presented to you today, meets all of our legislative requirements and provides a focused set of priorities for the year ahead that position Council to advance our vision and goals on behalf of the community. With that in mind, I present to you the operational plan 26-27.
Thank you, Mr Flanagan. Councillors, may I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Broderick, and a seconder, Councillor Hungerford. Thank you, Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, and thank you, Luke, for bringing this to us today. So pleased to support our Sunshine Coast operational plan for 26-27. This is where our long-term vision meets reality. Basically takes our corporate plan and turns it into something that we can use that's practical, measurable actions for the year ahead. actions that deliver the outcomes that our community most want. This work is the foundation for everything that we do. When our organisation is strong, responsive and well managed, we are far better placed to deliver for our community across all of the priorities that are listed, from environment and economy to growth and livability. Over the coming year, as Luke has pointed out, there's a few areas of focus. One of them is that we will be undertaking a review of our long-term financial model and refresh our 10-year outlook. This is critical work and ensures that we are making informed decisions about service levels, investment and resourcing, not just for today, but for the future of our Sunshine Coast. We will also be strengthening our advocacy by developing a clear, coordinated strategy to engage with state and federal governments. And this is about putting us in the strongest possible position to secure external funding for the infrastructure and the service that we desperately know that we need. Equally important is our workforce. Delivering for our community depends on having the right people in the right skills, in the right roles. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of our incredible staff right across council for the work that they do, because none of what we do and achieve gets done without you. So I just wanted to make sure that you all know that you're valued and thanked. Thank you for the work that you do. Another key priority is improving how we interact with our community. So our customer experience plan will focus on clearer communication, more responsive service and easier access to council services. It's about making it easier for people to engage with council, building and strengthening their trust in us. So this plan is not just about what we will do, it's also about how we hold ourselves accountable. So as Luke has been mentioning, is that every quarter this is brought back and we check against how we've been doing and the progress that we've been making, ensuring that we are actually delivering those outcomes that we're promising. So just before I hand over, Luke, just a couple, actually just mainly one question. We deliver how many services for the Sunshine Coast?
34 main services, but really there's about 114 sub-services.
Yeah, which is awesome. So as far as those services go, is there some kind of service catalogue that we can look forward to in the near future?
Through the chair, yes, we have a service catalogue and we're looking at a way to present that to the community in a way that sort of they can really understand, I guess, council's role and what we do.
Yeah, so when we say service catalogue, that obviously lists all the services that we have. Does that also show us what the expectations are? So are the community going to be able to see what it is that, you know, how many times their lawn is mowed?
Yeah, through the chair, a service catalogue, I guess, looks at the goals of the organisation, what services we do to progress those goals, and then defines the activities and service levels as you go deeper into that structure and how much they cost as well.
Yeah, which is great because that gives us something to measure against. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hand over. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Are there any other councillors? Yes, Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you. I've got a number of questions through you, Madam Mayor. My first question is in relation to item 4.11, which is in relation to the Caloundra Transport Corridor upgrade. What is the budgeted project cost contribution from council towards this project?
Mr Whittaker, our Director of Infrastructure and Natural Assets, will come to the microphone.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. The CTCU project is broken into two sections. Section 1 is the council portion for contribution that's fully LGIP funded. In the 26-27 financial years proposed at $11.8 million is in the budget for that. Section 2, which is predominantly external funding through the state government, it has $15 million in 26-27, and that's fully funded by the state government in the proposal. So that, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Mr Whittaker, is it the officer's view that there's sufficient funding in the proposed budget to deliver council's component of this project?
Madam Mayor, thank you for the question. The latest project estimate has risks and contingencies and matches what the current budget for the project is. In saying that, we are in a high escalation time at the moment in the construction sector. We are out to tender at the moment. That closes in the coming weeks. And once we complete the tender, we'll be reviewing the project estimate at that stage with the information we'd have.
And through you, Madam Mayor, that would require us to reconsider that at BR1 if there's an additional need for funding.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll update the estimate, and should there be a position where we'd need more money, we would have to come back and discuss that at that time.
Thank you. The next question I have through you, Madam Mayor, also Mr. Whittaker, probably might be worth staying there for a little while. Apologies. 4.1.2, progress construction of Maud Street and complete design for Sugar Road. What is the budgeted project cost for the Maud Street upgrade?
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you for the question. There's a number of projects that are line items in the budget. There's probably the main one is the Residential Activation Fund project at the moment, so Maud Street 3A. That has 12.5 million in the next 3 financial years to complete the design and build the job. Currently, we're design is underway. It is due to be complete by the end of this calendar year for tendering for construction early next year for a mid-27 start.
And apologise for being a bit repetitive, but through you, Madam Mayor, is it the view of the officers that there's sufficient funding in the proposed budget to deliver the aspects of this project?
I think my comment would be the same. Similarly, as we go through the project, we get more certainty. As you go through design and tender, we review the estimate at all stages and see whether there's adequate funding there to be able to deliver the project.
Right, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, 4.1.4, progress planning of new transport links from West Coolum to the Sunshine Motorway in alignment with the Queensland Government's plans to install 2 south-facing motorway ramps to alleviate congestion on existing local roads, provide efficient and safe movement and social connectiveness for our community. Is that in reference to the extensions of Suncoast Beach Drive and South Coolum Road for residents who might be playing along at home?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, what is the budgeted amount for the package of road upgrades that's allocated in the budget?
Through you, Madam Mayor, for South Coolum Road and Suncoast Beach Drive, the proposed budget has $39 million over the next 4 years to design and deliver that project. It has 1.25 million in 26-27 and 1.75 in 27-28 to do design and site investigations, and then the following 2 financial years is the money for the construction delivery of the project.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, Council's own website listed this project as being approaching construction in financial year 2028. Similarly, the modelling that was provided in support of the Airport Gateway Master Plan, the modelling showed from a transport perspective that those 2 links would be active by 2028. What confidence does the organisation have of being able to construct these roads as we have advertised?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the latest information would indicate that we'll be looking at a 2030 open for construction and finished in traffic.
And through you, Madam Mayor, would that be in alignment with the project that's being delivered by the state, which is the south-facing ramps at West Coolum?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I wouldn't be able to comment on where the state project's at. I would comment that we are in regular engagement with TMR on both of these projects to make sure they're complementing each other.
Okay, thank you. I just have one question on a different topic, not for Mr. Whittaker. Thank you. My question's to Ms. Fielding. So in previous years, there's been, and this is, sorry, I should be more specific. This is in relation to item 1.43, which is a reimagined festive season program. What does that mean?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the festive season program is continuing to see increasing costs associated with both the expansion and some of the infrastructure requirements. So we're looking at how we can review that to get a good outcome for the community, but manage costs.
Okay, thank you. So the festive season program, that includes things, through you, Madam Mayor, that includes things like Christmas tree decorations, carols, those sorts of things, fireworks. Is that right?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the festive season infrastructure includes the Maroochydore tree, the local trees, the 464 street pole banners, and some administrative budget associated with that.
Thank you. So my question through you, Madam Mayor, Ms. Fielding, in previous years have been some very open and transparent processes whereby councillors have been able to discuss with their communities what festive season activations may or may not be possible, such as things like fireworks for New Year's Eve at midnight. So the last time that this was considered by council was by resolution in May 2026, and this council resolved not to proceed with New Year's Eve fireworks at midnight, and yet that occurred anyway, which is an interesting chain of events. But my question is, given our desire to be a community-powered council and commitment to transparency, I assume there's going to be a report coming back to council for consideration and endorsement of that reimagined festive season program?
Through you, Madam Mayor, correct.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I might just speak to this item now.
Just before you progress, you said 2026, but I assume you mean 2025 because we haven't reached New Year's Eve for this year and next year yet.
Maybe I've got a crystal ball about what's going to happen, but I could have been wrong. But 2025, yes, you're right, Madam Mayor. So I apologise and would like to correct myself. I was, of course, referring to the 2025 fireworks display at midnight in Mooloolaba. Mayor, I'll speak to this now. Obviously, I will be supporting this today. There are a number of items in here that are of real interest to the community of Division 8 and communities in Division 8. The line of questioning is obviously indicative of the passion that I have around providing a connection to the Sunshine Motorway at West Coolum. This has been a project, a series of projects that has been talked about literally for decades. It has been on numerous occasions deferred and pushed back by successive councils. And I'm very, very happy about the fact that we are now in a space where we're doing detailed design to advance those two particular road upgrades, because we know that the state government has made a commitment to provide on and off ramps south facing at West Coolum Road, and it's only right that we actually provide our linkages at the same time that they do. So I will continue to push this organisation as hard as I can to ensure that we are delivering those projects in alignment to support the great work that the state government is doing to provide an extra access off the motorway at West Coolum, because it's been talked about for a long time. I also wanted to point out another item in the operating budget, in the operating plan, which is 1.41, the establishment of disaster management subgroups at North Shore and also Coolum, but Councillor Suarez, I assume, will want to talk about Coolum and North Shore given her disaster management hat. What I would say is that we have had some significant weather events right across the Sunshine Coast, but the impacts of the storms that we had last November on the 24th on the North Shore and Coolum communities was devastating. Councillor Law and I had actually just gone for a bike ride along the coastal path, looking at what trees might need to be trimmed back from a safety perspective, and we actually got caught in a picnic shelter at Majimba and experienced what that was like firsthand. And for almost a week, we had services that were compromised. Our response as a council was challenging in the sense that it was an evolving situation. And I think there is a need to have community-powered and driven disaster coordination responses on the ground in our communities, given the level of impact that we have seen from certain events. So I'll be supporting the operational plan today and look forward to the outcomes and driving the council towards delivering those projects that are really important to my communities.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I had a couple of questions, but Councillor Bunnag has asked those. I've got a remaining question about the 2.3.1, the review of the biosphere management model with key stakeholders. I'm not sure who's...
That is Ms. Robinson, Sustainable Growth and Planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Robinson. It's just basically about reviewing the management model with key stakeholders. I note that our council contributes about $140,000, which is comparable to Noosa Council's contribution to their biosphere. We're relatively new compared to Noosa Council, with only having endorsed the biosphere in 2022. So if our discussions with key stakeholders, the outcome is that they are not ready to go solo in terms of managing the biosphere. What will council consider in terms of our contributions, and have we got an allocation for this coming financial year?
Thank you, Councillor Suarez, for all those questions. Hopefully I'll remember them all through you, Madam Mayor. So we are doing some work at the moment to have a look at the biosphere in terms of its transition. We know that a number of biospheres that operate across the country have actually gone through transition and are more people focused and community powered as opposed to being held within council. There is a general perception that sometimes we might hold things back. So there'll be some work done over the next 18 months with our stakeholder groups, all of our stakeholder groups, around looking at whether we transition the biosphere to be more community focused. And that work will be coming back to councillors. In terms of the funds available, we do have funds available this coming financial year for us to continue to do the work internally that we need to do in relation to the biosphere. We also have 2 part-time staff that work on the biosphere as well. So it's not just money from our budget, but it is also resources that we have within the Environment and Sustainability Policy branch.
Thank you.
Hopefully I've got all the questions.
Just wanted to provide security to the biosphere reference group, or the community group who are managing the biosphere in line with council, that they're secure for the next 12 months while you have a look at the review. Thank you. I'll speak to it now, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yes, Councillor Bunnag spoke about the disaster management subgroups, and I was privy to attend one of the initial meetings in the Coolum Peregian area, and completely agree. We need some of these more localised groups across the whole entire region to build on the successful model that's been demonstrated out at the Glasshouse Mountains. When we have those localised events that don't result in a stand-up of our council, of our disaster management team, we need to have community support. And the services were actually compromised for longer than a week. It took months for our Parks and Gardens teams to get back to providing their regular servicing within our parks. The second thing that I just wanted to mention, Madam Mayor, was under the environment and livability, and I know Councillor Burns spoke about the coastal hazard precinct planning earlier under the levy policy. It's really pleasing to see that the precinct planning for Golden Beach, Maroochydore and Mooloolaba is progressing. They're probably our most vulnerable points on the coastline at this stage. Fingers crossed Mother Nature doesn't throw something unknown to us. I also wanted to mention the sport and recreation projects at Honey Farm and at Coolum High School grounds. There's also significant projects that are going to support those growing sporting communities. The placemaking at First Avenue that has commenced, it'll be great to see that progress. It's important to have that connectivity with our city centre, and also really pleased to see the projects that are looking at future-proofing our waste with the new cell at Nambour, and also a new waste strategy to provide some confidence and direction to this council going forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Burns.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, through you. I just wanted to say thank you to Luke for the presentation, but also through the CEO just for the work that's gone into this plan, for the operational plan for this year, coming year. Of particular note, it's very clear that there's a strong and there's a very strong focus on strategic priorities and risks for council. And I really want to commend the ELT and the CEO for that work. Of particular note to me is around the financial sustainability of the organisation. It's a challenge that we'll continue to have, and I appreciate the clarity that you've brought and the front of mind nature of it in this plan. Further to that, also the community powered or community centred organisation too. That element again is a strength that will actually continually see us well positioned into the future. But I think particularly too, I mean, Councillor Maria has just mentioned it, but those critical opportunities and challenges for council, which are waste. And so I'm really encouraged to see that we will be developing a clear waste strategy that sets us up for the community's sake. This is one of the most significant areas of concern for this council into the coming decade. This is not something that just happens this year, and the way we work as a community in terms of diverting, reducing our waste and the impact on our landfills is significant, and will continue to be as we do that alongside our South East Queensland councillor colleagues. Equal to that is very encouraged to see the strategic parking framework being recognised there too. Again, how we actually manage that as a resource and as a service across the region is vital as we continue to seek to change the way we travel and move around the region. And a parking framework will actually allow us to make better decisions and in terms of how we get around, but better decisions in how we manage those assets. Equal to that, and lastly, and I'm really pleased to see a really clear focus on how we as a council will be delivering our obligations in regards to the 2032 Brisbane Olympic and Paralympic Games, of which we are a delivery partner. There is an obligation on us and a responsibility for us to be well prepared to ensure that as a community, we don't just have bits of infrastructure in play, but that we're culturally ready, that we're actually got a volunteer base that's kind of good to go with a community that's actually on side and supportive. And so I just applaud the focus to ensure that over the next 5 years, particularly, that element's well considered. So thanks for the clarity and for the focus in this operational plan for the following year.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. I will also speak to the operational plan and to those focus areas in the operational plan. Financial sustainability, it is a key theme in the discussions that we have had about our budget and which we will no doubt have as we progress throughout this morning and indeed the year ahead. The new planning scheme, we know our community has been engaged with us as a council throughout this process and await further advice and communication on the proposed planning scheme. So that's another focus area for us. A community-centred organisation, responding to our community and truly listening to them is vital to me and to this council, to us all and the organisation broadly. Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. You've all heard me say I put on this badge every day as a reminder. We are now just over 6 years to go until that event when the eyes of the world will be on the Sunshine Coast, and we do have commitments as a co-host city. So to ensure that that is something that remains a focus for our organisation as it is for a community, I think is really important. Waste management and planning. Now, planning this service now and into the future is absolutely fundamental to this community and to this council to ensure that we are sustainable both financially, environmentally and legislatively. If you look at our obligations, it is what we owe our community. So this kind of planning into the future and the delivery of those services is something that is in this plan, and so it should be. This operational plan is aligned to our corporate plan and it is linked to our budget, which we are about to consider later this morning. So, councillors, I commend this operational plan to you. Does anyone else wish to speak? No, Councillor Broderick, would you like to close?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks again, team, for bringing this to us. This sets our priorities, and we've also spoken about, and many of our colleagues here have spoken about, the risks that are associated with that. And one of the things that this does is lays that out for us and ensures that we can check ourselves against it and ensure that we remain accountable to it. So often we get asked, where do my rates go? This is it. These are the 114 services that Council delivers that you can see, and things that we can constantly check back on. So thank you to the team And thanks again to all of our staff who've put all of the work in here. This has been a huge priority focus for us as well. As councillors and as an entire organisation, we've been going through all of these services to ensure that we're getting those priorities right. And this allows us to go back and check that we actually are. And I look forward to the day that we've got our service catalogue out there and everybody can be checking with us and ensuring that we're staying true and focused and prioritised. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. I think you're right. Sometimes people do ask, what is it that council does? And that service catalogue being available will be really beneficial. All right, councillors, I will now put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr Flanagan. Now, we have one more item on the agenda for today, councillors, but I am proposing a short 10-minute pause as a break so that we can be prepared for what is, I'm sure, going to be a very spirited and interesting debate after this short break. So we will come back at 11:45. Councillors, to those in the gallery and those watching online, we will move to item 5.6, which is the Budget 2026-27 adoption. Noting also that there is a new link for the live stream online because we finished our first section and our recording, and we are setting up with a new link for this one. And apologies again for the technical difficulties outside of our control that mean we have a slightly different process for the online version today. Now, councillors, I would like to move the officer recommendation for the 2026-2027 budget adoption, and a seconder, Councillor Suarez. Thank you. Thank you, councillor. Councillors, to our staff, our community members in the gallery, to those watching online, thank you for being here. Today, this council considers our budget for 2026-27. Two things have guided every decision in this document: the willingness to make tough decisions and a clear plan for where those decisions take us. It's not an easy budget. I won't pretend otherwise. Tough decisions and a clear plan. We are operating in one of the most difficult financial environments any tier of government has faced in a generation. The cost of building anything, running services, maintaining infrastructure, paying people fairly, it's all increased in ways that were difficult to predict and impossible to avoid. This is not unique to the Sunshine Coast. It's not unique to local government. Every council in Australia, every state government, the federal government, every business, large and small, every single household has confronted the same reality. Supply chains that were disrupted and never fully recovered, a construction industry under pressure from every direction, energy costs and fuel that have reshaped the economics of running everything from a library to a recycling plant, a workforce that's harder to recruit and more expensive to retain. The result, delivering our services now costs 30% more than it did 4 years ago. Construction costs have risen by more than 60%. These are not just numbers on a page. They represent real pressure on every project, every contract, every service this council delivers, and of course, every person and every family in our community. At the same time, our region continues to grow from 375,000 people today to more than 500,000 in the next 15 years. The infrastructure and services required to support that growth can't be deferred indefinitely. Council receives just 3 cents in every dollar of taxation collected in this country. Only 2/3 of our funding comes from rates. there is little room to absorb what the world has thrown at us. So, what has our community told us? This budget was not written in isolation. When I'm out in the community, and I'm out there a lot, I love meeting and listening to our people. One message comes through more clearly than any other. From the hinterland to the coast, from Coolum to Beerborough, people want a council that delivers within its means, is focused on community priorities, is not spending money on things that don't matter. They're not angry, they are clear. That message has been consistent across every piece of community engagement we've undertaken. Our resident surveys, our community pop-ups, our direct conversations with ratepayers and residents across every part of this region. It doesn't change, it is louder. So, we have looked at every single dollar in this budget through your eyes. Every line tested against one question. Does this deliver what our community actually needs now and into the future? And for the first time in this region's history, we put the question to a citizens panel. 53 residents selected from 10,000 invited households chosen to reflect our community's true diversity. Not a survey, not a submission process, genuine, sustained deliberation about priorities, trade-offs and values. The panel's findings confirmed and clarified what we had been hearing. Get the basics right. Focus on what matters most. Demonstrate real value for every dollar. Reduce waste and duplication before asking our community for more. That feedback from the doorstep, from our surveys, from the panel, shaped where we have directed resources and what we've chosen to fund. It gave us both the mandate and the obligation to make harder decisions than might what otherwise have been made. I want to thank every member of that panel. I want to thank every resident who has taken the time to tell us what you think, in whatever way you chose to do that. This budget reflects what you told us. I want to be clear, direct, and honest about where we are as an organisation. As our region grew, our organisation grew with it. More services, more staff, more capability. Whether that was the right response or not is not something I will comment on. What I will say is that the financial environment has shifted dramatically. An organisation built for that era simply costs more than we can afford. This is something that concerned me before I was elected. Now, as your mayor, I'm fully focused on doing something about it. I am not here to relitigate the past. I am here to fix it. The direction is set. The discipline is non-negotiable. Our goal is a balanced budget, a return to surplus as a norm, so we can keep delivering the services our community needs and deserves sustainably and for the long term. Getting there will require consistency over time. It will require choices in future budgets that are no less difficult. It will require this council to hold its nerve when the pressure to spend more returns, as it always does. We are prepared for that. Tough decisions, a clear plan. What does fixing it look like? Rates will rise and council will tighten its belt. For the majority of owner-occupier ratepayers, that rise equates to $4.26 a week, $228.68 for the year, or 9.7%. For some, it is more. The state government's land revaluation, which is linked to rates by law and which saw property values rise by an average of 24% across the region, that could have driven rates far higher, and we have worked to limit that impact as far as we could. The Environment Levy holds at $82. The Arts and Heritage Levy holds at $20. The Transport Levy sits at $44. I know what this all means for families already managing tight household budgets. I do not take it lightly. None of us here do. As we are asking our community to absorb cost pressures, it is only right that we hold ourselves to exactly the same standard. We are redirecting resources towards frontline delivery, building a smaller, more efficient council focused on getting the basics right. Leaner, more disciplined. We are making clearer choices about where our resources go. The CEO and executive have been tasked with finding real efficiencies, delivering more for our community for less. Our community has been consistent. Protect our lifestyle and our environment. Deliver good roads, clean parks, safe beaches, reliable waste services, strong libraries and community and sporting facilities. It's a long list. We have heard that, and we have directed more of this budget towards those priorities. And we will continue to do more. Every dollar in this organisation has to earn its place. The goal is straightforward. Get back to being a financially sustainable council without returning to ratepayers year after year with the same conversation. I am acutely aware that this budget asks more of families who are already stretched. Not everyone in our community is equally placed to absorb a rate increase. This council does not pretend otherwise. Pensioner concessions increased by 5%. A single pensioner on a full pension will receive $343 this year. A couple will receive $268. Part pensioners will also receive an increased concession. For anyone finding it difficult, support is available through processes that are straightforward, respectful, and there when you need them. So, what does this budget deliver? Despite our constraints, we must also take responsibility for our future. We will deliver $296 million in capital works across our region. Among so many projects this council is delivering, I'm proud to speak to just a few. I'm sure my councillor colleagues will speak to their own divisions and portfolios. Transport and connectivity, $70.9 million to begin the Caloundra Transport Corridor upgrade, easing pressure on Nicklin Way and the suburban streets around it. $34 million of this comes from the Queensland Government. $20 million to upgrade First Avenue in Maroochydore, wider footpaths, raised pedestrian crossings, new trees and plantings, supported by $5.4 million from the Australian Government. $8.7 million for the Mooloolaba to University Active Transport Corridor, connecting Mooloolaba, Mountain Creek, Sippy Downs and Buderim, with a continuous path for walking, cycling or rolling. $27 million to reseal and rehabilitate roads across 2,600 kilometres of our road network, the roads our community drives every single day. Sport, recreation and community, $34.6 million for the Honey Farm Road Sports Precinct at Merredin Plains. Fields, courts, trails, playgrounds for a part of our region that has waited patiently. Football fields for soccer, and a clubhouse opening in 2027 with $13.6 million from the Australian government. $5.7 million this year for a new Caloundra Town Square, linking the Event Centre, the new Library Plus and Caloundra Regional Gallery through to Bullcock Street. $5 million from the Transport Levy for the Vulnerable Pedestrians Program, for safer paths and crossings for children, older residents and people with disability right across the region. Our environment and foreshore, $21 million for the Mooloolaba foreshore revitalisation, a new coastal pathway, viewing decks, terrace seawall and public amenities, supported by $11.7 million from the Queensland and Australian governments. These projects represent partnerships designed to make your dollar go further. Through co-investment with the Queensland and Australian governments, we are adding value for every ratepayer dollar spent in the region, and we will continue to pursue every opportunity to leverage state and federal funding on behalf of our community. I promise you that. Let me be clear. We are delivering projects this year that our communities have been calling for over decades. That level of co-investment and commitment we have secured from the state and federal governments for this region is unprecedented, and we have no intention of stopping there. I also want to say something about the longer view for the region we're building. The Sunshine Coast is not simply a growing region, it's a region on the cusp of something genuinely significant. In just over 6 years, we'll co-host the Olympic and Paralympic Games. The eyes of the world will turn towards us. What they see here will matter. But the legacy of 2032 is not built in 2032. It's shaped by budgets like this one, in the infrastructure we commit to now, in the financial discipline that ensures we arrive at that moment as a council and a community with the capacity to seize it, not one burdened by debt deferred and decisions avoided. By 2041, more than 509,000 people will call this region home. Every decision this council makes about where to invest, what to prioritise, how to fund it, will shape the region those people inherit. That is the weight of what we do here today. Getting the finances right is not an administrative exercise. It is an act of responsibility to the people who are already here, to our children, to those who are coming, to show strong and clear financial stewardship even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult. Tough decisions and a clear plan. Councillors, today we make a decision that is difficult and necessary in equal measure. Our community does not expect us to be perfect. They expect us to be honest about the reality we are all living, to make decisions we can defend and to get on with delivering it. That is what this budget does. I've spoken to what this budget delivers. Now I want to acknowledge the people who have made it possible. To our Chief Executive Officer, our Chief Financial Officer, all the members of our executive, we challenged you to find efficiencies. It's been hard work. To our entire budget team, you have done genuinely difficult work under real pressure to a high standard. To every member of our organisation, thank you for your work each and every day. I also want to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you, my councillor colleagues. We have sat with some uncomfortable numbers in recent months. We have made some uncomfortable decisions. That is what this work demands. A budget shaped by consensus is rarely a budget shaped by courage. And that is what we show here today. To our community, we hear you. We know this is hard. We are asking something real of you. We do not do so lightly. In return, we commit to spend every dollar wisely, to look at our own operations, to be honest even when things are difficult, and to responsibly deliver the services and infrastructure that shape a brighter future for our unique region. In honesty, this is not where any of us hoped we would be. It's not why we stood for office. These are long-standing challenges, but they are challenges this council is facing with clear eyes and a clear plan. It's not easy, but it is the right thing to do for this generation and for the ones who come after us. We are not yet where we need to be financially, but today, with this budget, we take a serious and deliberate step in the right direction towards a brighter future. Thank you, councillors. Now I open the floor to each of you. Councillor Dixon.
Yes. Do we know if the microphones are fixed yet or no? Okay, then I might do what I did before. Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, through you, it's very hard to follow that. And I'm sure everyone in the room was thinking, well, who's next? And, you know, I feel an obligation to speak, given that for this budget, this financial year we're still in, I was one of the two councillors who voted against it. And you'll remember I did not use that opportunity to grandstand, nor did I seek media interviews, nor did I even post it on Facebook. In fact, I made my point and I moved on, and that was out of respect for the team. And let me tell you that when I made that decision, some of that weight in my mind was that we hadn't done enough as an organisation to mature the budget discussion. I felt that we weren't tightening our belt, as you stated earlier. But the officers have convinced me through this process, a substantial process. In fact, when councillors say, oh, we've had a few budget workshops, that is not true. In fact, there have been many days of detailed budget workshops to the point where staff have said, well, what do you want to debate? What are the issues that you want to go through? And for the first time in a long time as a councillor, I've actually enjoyed a budget process because I've been asked, well, Christian, what do you think? And to be fair, whilst we didn't all agree on each other's views, I got to put forward everything that I wanted. And when I came into the room one day and I said, Madam Mayor, councillors, I've got an ambition to see rates at 5 or 6%. I was able to say that. And I wasn't judged for it. And I came in with all these fantastic ideas that I had to save ratepayers money. And to the credit of the CEO and the organisation, they'd already done that work. They came to us and said, well, councillor, we've got some adjustments that we can make in the organisation. We've got some saving mechanisms that we can present to you. And to be fair, Madam Mayor, when I came into that environment, I felt that a lot of wind was taken out of my sails. I felt that I was more comfortable in the approach, given that staff had done a lot of legwork. And if you think back to my earlier comment, I was nervous about the previous budget, the current financial year, and to see the enormous amount of work done made me feel better knowing that the community is not wearing all this alone. In fact, as a council, we are tightening our belt and wearing a very strong share of this problem. And the accountability is what got me across the line. Being positive is something we need to do. And in a time like this right now, the community are looking at us. Councillors, are you going to have infighting? Are you going to cancel your budget? Will we no longer get our bins picked up? These are the questions that people will ask. And in fact, it's on us today as a region, as a collective body to say, you know what? It is important that we get the basics right. Your waste bins will be collected. Your libraries will open. The crackweed issues will be resolved. Your parks will be mowed. And when people say get back to basics, they're the type of things that people are talking about. And without a budget, we can't do it. I had a conversation with Councillor Winston, I'm sure we've had this a few times now, about the ebbs and flows of budgets. And there will be divisions that do better in budgets and there'll be divisions that don't do as well. And it's just how it works in the budgeting process. I've been on a very long journey around two significant projects, and Mr. CEO, I will raise them again. Obviously, the Sippy Downs Community Library and the Dixon Power Road Extension Bridge, both significant projects, probably in the order of $100 million for two projects. And I know today that working with the team and showing the courage to continue the budget process means that I'm at the table. And someone said to me recently, Christian, you can sit on the side and throw as many stones as you want, but if you're not in the room making decisions and impacting change, then why are you a councillor? And, you know, I just took that to heart. I thought about that proposition, and for me, that means making the hard decisions. Getting back to what I said earlier, Madam Mayor, we had a significant rate rise. We've brought that down. We're wearing some of that pain internally. And to that end, I appreciate the CEO and CFO's efforts and that of the executive. So it makes me more comfortable. But we've got a lot of work to go. Our forecasts for the future budgets are significantly ambitious. And as Councillor Hungerford talks about all the time, we need to be very careful about how we spend money, how we borrow, and what that future looks like. But Madam Mayor, all in all, this is about showing leadership and working as a team. And I think for the community out there, if there's one thing I've taken in nearly 20 years of local government, ratepayers are begging us to work together as a team and show leadership. And that's exactly why, although I haven't got everything I'd like to achieve in this budget, and I don't like the rate increase dollar that's proposed, I will back the team, I will back this council, and I will back our community.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I rise, but I'll stay seated. No, and look, it has been some very difficult discussions in preparing this budget for all of us. There's been quite a number of times I've reflected on decisions and support that we've had to do. And today, obviously, is a presentation of exactly what we need to do to find those efficiencies. To be the most sustainable region, we need to be the most financially sustainable region. And with changes within council and also outside council that we need to make, fully supportive of what's coming. For myself as a councillor and for obviously Division 2 and Caloundra, we've been very fortunate, and I will say very fortunate, in major projects that have been supported by this council. And I really just want to touch on the library, the new library in Caloundra, which was an amazing project that's been delivered. A whole of region facility continues to actually deliver an amazing community benefit. In the previous quarter, we had over 80,000 visitors into that library. And I want to thank Council for the support in delivering that wonderful piece of infrastructure that will be a generational delivery project for years and years to come. I know Councillor Taylor spoke about the wait for obviously connection of the South Coolum facing, or the roads that you need onto the motorway. And just to touch on the Caloundra Transport Corridor, it was first proposed in 2003. So I hope, Councillor Taylor, you don't have to wait 23 years to finally start seeing a project move forward. But I will say in regards to the CTCU and through Madam Mayor, we really need to look at advocating maybe more heavily if we do not receive EPA approval by the end of this month. That road is significant. It delivers much more infrastructure into Caloundra, and it triggers obviously a huge investment from the state government. And we really need to deliver that road ASAP. We've been fortunate enough to see the upgrade of the Kings Beach Surf Lifesaving Facility, one of the oldest buildings in Caloundra on Kings Beach, built in the late 50s. And thankfully to the investment from a major development out in Caloundra South, where each property sold contributes to a Caloundra South infrastructure project. And I hope in the future, when we look at other major regional developments and housing developments, that they also contribute to infrastructure that we all desperately need. But with all the deliveries of 34 different service outputs that we deliver right across the coast, from libraries, as I spoke about, lifeguards, cemeteries, our economic development through tourism, destination development, and also holiday parks, the community's just got to realise that they all come with a huge cost. And the increase in all these projects is just becoming such a strain on this council. I'll be supporting this today and look forward to supporting Madam Mayor
in all media engagements to share this as broadly as possible. And I'm sure our community will see the deliveries on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Thanks for your support also. Councillor Hungerford.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to say this year I can actually vote for the budget. I couldn't last year and I still stand by that. The reasons why I can get behind this budget is we're getting our loan borrowing down. The last year was 66 million, largest I've seen in a long time. That was a necessity, unfortunately. This year we're bringing it down to 21 million. I want to see us keep driving that down too. Now the deficits, the previous one was 38 million, this one just under 13, and we're now proposing just over 7. We're driving that down as well. Very positive, we want to keep that going. And we're actually looking at going for a positive operating result by 2028. That takes the pressure off having to borrow, and we've got to keep that going. Main problem we've had this year is the unimproved land valuations. That's done every 2 or 3 years by the Valuer General's Department, and that's the only one we can use to levy rates. This time there was quite a wide variation in land values. I know mine went up 30.6%. So when you look at the increase in valuations, 50% of our ratepayers are above that average. There's such a wide-ranging range. And that's can have quite an impact on the rates scenario. But I'd like to say I've been very impressed with the finance team's great job on this and the work they've been doing. Some of them do into their own time and into weekends and things to get this right, and I really do appreciate the dedication of our finance team. So what they've been able to achieve is we've adjusted the rating bands, the values in your band, revised it up so we can keep the vast majority of ratepayers within their existing band. That negates, like if you get wage rises, bracket creep, and you're going into a higher bracket. So that's been reduced the impact on our ratepayers. We've also adjusted the rate in the dollar to achieve the amount of money we need to raise. That's further working on reducing the impact. Unfortunately, some will still get rises higher than the average, but it's not a perfect thing, and we've done the best we can. Our finance team has done a brilliant job and I'm convinced, have achieved the best possible outcome with the scenario they have to work with. Now, a 9.7% increase, we'd all like to have it lower than that, but the realities are, and it's been stated before, the cost of delivering the services we deliver our ratepayers out there, that's gone up an average 30% over the last 4 years. We've got to wear that all the time with the increase in fuel prices and everything going up at the moment. That's extra pressure on us. And construction, those costs have raised more than 60%. And we have to absorb those. And the cost of delivering those works out there is getting dearer every year. I know the money I put to footpaths in my division, I'm getting less and less distance every year, and they're putting the same money to it. So we're under pressure all the way around. But I can say I'm confident this budget's heading in the right direction. I want to see us drive down the capital budget and our operating budget in the future to reduce the necessity for rate rises and loan borrowings. And I believe we can do that if we remain focused on it. This is heading in the right direction, and I can today get behind this budget and vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Bunnag.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to start with a question. Poor old Mr. Whittaker's going to be having to get his step count up again. Through you, Madam Mayor. There was a slide in your speech that was around the cost of the Mooloolaba foreshore upgrade. I think the quoted number was 21 million. Can I please just ask, what's the total project cost? Because through you, Madam Mayor, while I believe that might be for this financial year, I believe that it's a greater cost than $21 million, perhaps.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Mr. Whittaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much for clarifying that, Madam Mayor. Responding to the councillor's question, the 21 million would be this next financial year's contribution or budget for that project.
Through you, Madam Mayor, do we have an indication of the total project cost?
I'd be able to go back and find that out relatively quickly and come back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might speak to this now, Madam Mayor. Thanks very much, and thanks, Mr. Whitaker, for following that up. This budget process has been extraordinarily difficult for everyone. Seeking for me personally to balance my role as a regional decision maker versus the desire to ensure that my own constituents in my communities are getting the fair share of funding and services they deserve it's been very complex. It's been very challenging, and I'll speak to more on that later. However, try as I might to bring myself to not vote for the budget and adopt a very easy political path, I have a sense of responsibility in not having created these financial pressures necessarily, but in wanting to fix it so that we're financially sustainable. And that means voting for this budget today. Voting against the budget would be voting against services now and project in the longer term, and also financial sustainability, which wouldn't really make sense to me. But while I'll be casting my vote in favour of the budget, there are certainly aspects that I fundamentally disagree with and I think are wrong, and I'm going to speak about them. And the first is the distribution of the capital works program in our region. I have such pride and love for the communities in my division, and I'm generally proud of what we've been able to achieve over the last 2 years with the help of council staff and the community. But for several years before I was elected and now, there's a strong sense that our communities have been underinvested in comparatively, while it feels a lot like we've been subsidising the largesse of council's desire to build certain pet projects in other places. It's a feeling that's well felt in the community from locals who have been here for a long time. The other day, I was chatting to a former council employee in Mount Coolum who offered off the cuff that he has witnessed a history of council and councillors underinvesting in parts of the region. Other residents like Estelle, who lives in Yurumba, wrote to the Coolum Advertiser in 2024, and I'm pretty sure Estelle didn't vote for me, but asked, and I quote, "A review of several years of council capital works budgets reveals Division 8, particularly north of the Maroochy River, has a history of receiving generally less capital works funding than other divisions. I would like someone to ask council management why." And to Estelle and to the other resident that I've spoken about, the reality is I have asked those questions and I have sought and litigated and relitigated this issue, and it's not finished yet. And there's examples in real time. The fact that I am pretty confident that we will be spending more money on a single project in Mooloolaba than we have in the last 5 years collectively in Division 8 communities should make everyone in this room seriously think about whether the priorities are right and why this keeps happening, because it does keep happening. This is not an ebb and flow. It is why I believe that the decision in this budget to evenly increase the minor capital works allocations across all divisions from $550,000 to $840,000 is wrong. Giving more funding to places by their own admission that have been very generously looked after at the expense of investing in something like a region-wide curbside waste service model, or simply not charging residents the equivalent of nearly 1% in extra rates, is a short-sighted decision that compounds our problems and to me does not look like financial stewardship. So while that sounds like a lot of moaning, what I have tried to do about it is that I've tried to make inroads with new projects secured for our communities in Division 8 after hard-fought advocacy, such as the Felix Parry Park upgrade in Marcoola, investment in Picnic Point's revitalisation, funds for Wilkins Park in Pacific Paradise in financial year 2028, and more. But the reality is that ratepayers in my communities still deserve much greater share of projects, and I'm determined to fix this broken model into the future. I know that hoping for something or being patient is not a coherent strategy, but me advocating, planning and negotiating potentially is. It's why the Capital Works program now provides some degree of certainty that generational projects like the extensions of South Coolum Road and Suncoast Beach Drive, might happen in the next few years instead of the next few decades. And to Councillor Landsberg's comments before, this project has literally been in planning for more than, I'm going to say, the feedback I've had is that it's at least 3 decades, potentially more. It featured in our Marucci plan in 2000 and has been around for a very, very long time. I might need an extension of time, Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dixon, seconded. Councillor Burns. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The second thing that I would like to just point out that I have concerns about is that I believe that we need to look at showing greater leadership around financial sustainability in a way that doesn't continue coming back to the ratepayer and staff, as you have mentioned. And for me, there are the key opportunities and pillars of that vision that this budget, I think, could have gone further on. The first is around asset rationalisation, and no one's going to like hearing this, but it has to be said. We should sell or lease parts of City Hall. There isn't a single person in our community, I think, who thanks me or any of my colleagues for sitting in this building. We should be bold and realise that our community doesn't value assets such as these and use the funds from this building to invest in the assets our community actually values. Indoor sports courts, parks, libraries, road infrastructure. If sophisticated ASX listed companies like Sonic Healthcare Limited can consider selling assets like their own laboratory in Bowen Hills, then I think we should absolutely consider the usefulness of this building and whether it serves a purpose for us holding onto it into the future. I think we should unapologetically identify other assets that are lazy and a function of a pre-amalgamation asset structure. The test to me is simple and is not philosophically driven at all. Does the asset provide or have the potential to provide a benefit or strategic advantage to the community and council? And if it doesn't, why does council continue to own it? And the final thing that I think we could have done more and seriously considered is advocating and looking at ways to make tourists pay a meaningful contribution to our community ahead of the Olympics and Paralympics and beyond. Much of council's resources, as you've seen today, goes towards supporting tourism, and that is absolutely a positive thing. However, in its current format, it is unsustainable and means we have limited capacities to support other industries and other parts of the Sunshine Coast. This council needs to be brave and pursue initiatives, I believe, like a bed tax for tourist accommodation, while simultaneously introducing a requirement that transitory accommodation providers like Airbnbs pay an annual registration fee and are more tightly regulated in our low residential communities. So in closing, this budget does have my support today from the voting perspective, because I'm voting for financial sustainability, and I believe that in the division which I represent, there are green shoots for the future, but it certainly is not perfect, and there are things that I would have loved to have changed, but as Councillor Dixon has alluded to, this is a team sport, and I'm one of 11 councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Bunnag. Councillor Law.
Stand up because that's what we do. So through you, Madam Mayor, I wish to speak, and it will be in favour of the budget, but echoing some comments of 12 months ago at the similar meeting, I don't like it, and I still don't like it, and there's still a lot that needs to be done to help us get back to a place where we're not talking about the basics and getting back to the basics, but we're talking about the services and the community and the place that we wish to live is far more than just the basics. Because as a region, the Sunshine Coast is so much better than that. And you can't do those future building projects when people mention the Olympics if you're still struggling with the basics. I wasn't going to talk about the things that troubled me last year, but Councillor Landsberg has encouraged me to do so. Yes, the challenges and difficulties that led up to last year's budget, when I think of what we've done in the last 12 months,
have been a reflection of what I felt I was going through on my own in the previous year that led to a significant project for the hinterland and specifically for Division 10 and specifically for Nambour around the redevelopment of Council's building that would have created something a little bit like the impact the Caloundra Library Plus has had. And the most important impact is not only the resources and the modern library for a community and community meeting spaces, it's the opportunity to bring people into the region and into a town centre, which is one of the things that we try to do when we talk about place activation. And those figures of 80,000 people going through per quarter are nothing less than remarkable and exactly what place activation is about. So I will continue to keep that on our future budget and in our future focus. And it hangs in there for the time being. How much longer? Who knows? But it has been a very difficult experience to arrive at this budget, to achieve financial sustainability and getting back to the basics. But as I say, we should be doing and striving for so much more than just the basics. It's a process that has been reviewed by the Queensland Treasury Corporation. So we know that we've been reviewed and we've got some reliable external reports and reviews behind us. So we should, if goes well, and if we remain accountable and responsible for every single thing that we have discussed today, the things we like, the things we don't like, as long as we can stick to that, we'll have a chance and an opportunity to remain sustainable. Some important things: we will maintain and retain the pensioner discount. We will continue to service and make sure that our libraries are operational. And it's actually really very, very lovely that this year we will have the celebration of 40 years of the Kenilworth Library. The sorts of things that councils do well, and we need to continue doing well. We know that our playgrounds and play parks are going to remain a focus, and there will be some renewals and some refreshments and some much needed repairs throughout Division 10 for our play parks. We'll continue with some streetscapes. The Nambour Place plan will get underway by the end of this year, and Kenilworth will see the continuation of its streetscape. We will continue to support our communities through grants and partnerships. Very, very important work, but those grants and partnerships enable our community to do the things that they want and they see and necessary right in their streets and neighbourhoods, and particularly in the sporting clubs and sporting recreation. We continue to support our venues and sporting facilities, which are very important to ensure that our communities can continue to thrive and do well and bring up the sporting champions of the future. We will also focus on those pathways and pedestrian crossings through our Vulnerable Persons campaign. And they, again, very important work that we will do and do form a part of those basics. And of course, we can rely on our rubbish bins to be emptied each week. But I would finish by saying what we are signalling here is accountability and responsibility, and the monitoring that every week as we start to prepare a budget for the following year, and as we make sure that we are truly accountable and transparent and deliver on what has been set here today under very, very difficult circumstances that have been more evenly and broadly shared. And there's still a lot more to do in that space for the whole region, not just one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll remain seated if that's okay.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, this has been, without a doubt, the hardest and the most difficult budget that I've had to deal with, not only in the current 6 years that I've been a councillor, but also in the 9 years I was previously a councillor. And I'd just like to pay tribute to our CEO, our Chief Financial Officer, and all of our executive, as well as the many people under them, who, in my opinion, for the first time, have
told us how it really is. And it was quite shocking. It was shocking for me. I can imagine how much it must have been for the mayor, because she must have on occasion thought, what the hell have I come to? But having said that, to her credit, she has taken all the issues on board and worked with everybody to try and sort all the problems out. And some of them are fairly substantial problems. Now, over the years, I've, like Councillor Van talked about, and also Councillor Law talked about the hinterland, how it, and north of the river, how we feel that we've been disadvantaged over the years. But I've come to realise that after 6 years of advocating for many things, they're coming to pass. And hopefully when I'm gone, some of the things that I've put in place for the future will be achieved by whoever follows. Now, I'd just like to talk about this budget in particular. And first of all, there's been some comment about our loan borrowings at $472 million. If you have a look at a household and see how the loan borrowings within a household is many multiples of the annual income, our income from rates and utilities, which is general rates and also our cleansing rates or waste collection, is 543 million. So we've actually borrowed in excess of 70 million less than what 1 year's revenue is. And that 543 million excludes interest that we would expect to receive, and also it excludes, or it includes the reduction for pensioner discounts. So that's the net figure that we have as revenue. And there are so many councils throughout Queensland and Australia who would love to be in that position. And the reason we're in that position, in this position, is because over the years, we've generally, almost continually borrowed money for income producing assets and works on income producing assets. Now, within my division, Division 5, I'm pleased to say that this financial year, we will have between buildings, facilities, environmental assets such as the Botanic Gardens, Marici Botanic Gardens, Mary Cancross, our parks and gardens, stormwater, transportation, waste and minor capital works, some $11 million worth of work that will be carried out this coming financial year. And in addition to that, there's a carryover from the current financial year of some $3 million that weren't completed, but will be completed in the next financial year. I'd like to commend the Mayor for using some of her minor capital works to assist the residents with a new footpath in Glenview Road, 147,000. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to point out that some of the major issues, some of the major expenditures in my division, and there are a lot of them, Western Avenue, Stage 2, is, which will be completed next financial year at 628,000. There's still over 200,000 left on unfinished work, and I hope that will start this month.
Councillor Johnston, would you like an extension of time? Councillor Natoli and Burns, all those in favour? That's carried unanimously.
There's also a gravel road upgrade, Christensen Road to a lower order gravel road, bitumen road upgrade of almost 1.8 million. That's something that has been promised for some years. And within the Maloney Community Precinct, You know, the precinct was developed many, many years ago and has got very, very poor footpaths in a lot of it, and non-existing in other areas. And I'm pleased to see that there's going to be 1.2 million spent on footpaths in that park. So in addition to that, there's 1.6 million on top of the 1.7 million for the Mullaney streetscape. The 1.7 million was this current financial year, but it's only starting on the 22nd of June. So that will be spent, so a total of about 3.3 million for streetscape in Mullaney, with 600,000 of that being contributed by the state government towards upgrading the footpaths. So there's a lot of expenditures, a lot of works that's going to be done, and replacement of footpaths, upgrading of footpaths, you know, Botanic Gardens and Mary Cancross expenditure to upgrade the facilities. And in addition to that, there've been a lot of other projects which I've worked on over the recent years. And I'd also like to say that on top of the 11 million approximately and the 3 million that has to yet be spent from the current financial year, there'll be some 3 to 4 million spent on road reseals in my division. Significant extra money spent on road upgrades, sports facilities, environment facilities, maintenance of gravel roads, maintenance of bitumen roads, maintenance of parks and footpaths, and the libraries. So overall, I think this financial year in particular, the people of Division 5 have received value for their rate dollar. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Suarez.
Couple of questions to start with, and while Keith's sitting right next to the lectern. Yes, just thank you to the staff for doing all the work. And the questions are not related to this coming budget that we are here to endorse today, but it's more about future projections and moving towards a more financially sustainable council. I just want to test the assumption that we have on our operating revenue with Unity Water's participation. We have a static number that is put forward over quite a number of years. With our planning scheme coming online and potential new growth areas, I know that puts pressure on Unity Water to deliver the infrastructure. How will we test those assumptions in future years in terms of what returns we might get to council?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Suarez. Through you, Madam Mayor, we engage regularly with Unity Water and the executive of Unity Water and how they're operating their business. We have a fixed shareholder arrangement, and our return is a function of that and their assets and their business as it continues to grow. So Unity Water, like the other utilities in South East Queensland and the councils in South East Queensland, are struggling with the financial challenges that are out there as well. And they're also experiencing some review directed by the state government on their pricing mechanisms also. They've indicated to us that won't affect the return to our business, but we'll need to keep a close eye on that and continue to engage with Unity Water. It's not something that we can influence directly, but it's certainly something we keep a mindful eye on, and we'll produce the forecasts whenever we have any new information.
Thank you for that. The second assumption that I want to test is just our disaster recovery funding arrangements. We have some funding next year, but it decreases in outer years to nil in 2019. Is that related directly to QRA funding?
Yes, Councillor Suarez. The funding that we would have reflected would be for approved funds for events that have already occurred in the past. So we do not forecast for anticipated funding for events or things that haven't occurred.
Right. Thank you for that. Although I think we should be forecasting for it, as we know we're probably having more and more disasters hit our region as climate change continues.
Part of our objective to move to a more financially sustainable position is to return to operating surpluses, and that provides us some buffer to respond to such occurrences.
Yep, thank you for that. They're all my questions. I'll speak to the item. Thank you now.
Thank you, councillor.
As others have said, this is not an easy budget to stand behind, and we are being asked to support a significant rates increase at a time when many in our community are already under real financial pressure. As councillors, we are faced with an incredibly difficult balancing act. On one hand, we must be responsible stewards of essential services that residents rely on every single day, and on the other hand, we must plan for the future. Population growth, ageing infrastructure and community expectations mean we cannot simply stand still. In Division 9, I'm particularly concerned about areas where the dual impact of significant land valuation increases come alongside this rate rise. And I know that suburbs in Division 9 are not alone. For many homeowners, especially long-term residents on fixed or limited incomes, these combined pressures can create genuine financial strain. And Madam Mayor, that is why throughout this budget process we have advocated for balance between financial management and compassion, balance between essential investment and affordability, and balance between region-wide priorities and the specific impacts on local communities like Division 9. Importantly, our responsibility does not end with the adoption of this budget. We must be committed to financial discipline. That means rigorous, ongoing scrutiny of every dollar spent, not just at budget time, but throughout the entire financial year. We cannot allow cost overruns to be accepted as inevitable. We cannot allow projects to drift beyond scope without challenge. And Madam Mayor, we cannot allow spending decisions to go unquestioned, because at the end of the day, accountability is not optional. It is the price of the trust our community places in us. At a time when households are carefully reviewing their own budgets, we must hold ourselves to the same standard, which is what you said earlier, if not to a higher one. However, even in a challenging budget, there are reasons for optimism and there are real outcomes for our community to be proud of. In Division 9, we are delivering important investments that will strengthen our growing community. The Sunshine Coast Mountain Bike Centre at Maroochy River is set to begin construction in 2027. We're also delivering stage 1 of the Coolum District Sports Ground, funded by Council, as well as backed by $5 million state government contribution. We are planning for more inclusive and flexible recreation spaces by investigating suitable locations for multi-use basketball and pickleball courts at Pridgeon Breeze and Kingfisher Park in Bly. And our natural assets are being enhanced with upgrades at Maroochy Wetlands Sanctuary, along with a new disability-compliant beach access ramp at Tickle Park at Coolum, making our coastline more accessible for everyone. And we are also investing in safety with additional pathways across Division 9 and extended solar lighting along Havana Road West, providing connectivity between Coolum Beach and Pridgeon Springs, particularly after dark. I also like to thank you, Madam Mayor, for your contributions in Bly and Pridgeon Beach to some projects that we're having there as well. Thank you. These are the kinds of projects that matter. They reflect a growing region and demonstrate that we invest responsibly where our community can see real benefits. But because while we may not be able to eliminate the increases, we must do everything we can to soften their impact. Madam Mayor mentioned the budget reflects the reality that councils across the country are facing rising costs, growing demand and limited revenue options. This does not make the decision easier, but it does provide context. Our desire is to head in the right direction, and we need to ensure that every decision we make in this chamber must be grounded in serving our community both now and into the future. And I will be supporting this budget and supporting you, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Please excuse my back. Keith. I'm going to start a little bit differently, if that's okay. And I figure, why should Keith get all the love today? Let's share it round. So I think I've got a question for all of the ELT, if that's okay.
Thank you. I'm sure they're looking forward to it.
They look really excited. Keith, if it's okay, we will start with you, though, if that's okay. These are broader questions just about the budget in general for those people who don't feel like listening to the whole lot of all of the presentations today, just some of those questions that might be out there. So can you please outline how this budget supports council's long-term financial health, and are you confident that this proposed budget will allow council to live within our means while still delivering what's important to our community?
Wow.
Welcome, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Broderick, through you, Madam Mayor. The short answer is yes. As you're well aware, Councillor Broderick, we have spent many weeks, around 14 or 15 all-day sessions with councillors working through, many iterations of the budget and many ideas and initiatives to try and, change the direction that we're heading in here. I'm feeling confident with this budget because we have an improved surplus position in there. We have a greater understanding and control over our capital program, and we have some initiatives and strategies addressing the expenditure increases that we've experienced over recent years. So they're the key elements that point us in the right direction, and certainly through the experience in the councillor workshops, there's a commitment of both council and the executive to deliver on those findings. So I think that's heading us in the right direction. The sustainability ratios that support this budget are a testament to that as well. But it's not over at this point in time. The work needs to continue, certainly over the next few years, to embed those changes and deliver on those strategies to get the outcome that we're planning for.
Thank you. And you also answered my question there on the sustainability ratio, so I can jump to the next one. Thank you. So can we have clarity on whether our asset renewal program is keeping pace with growth, given that we've got almost $10 billion worth of assets here on the Sunshine Coast and we've got a fast-growing region? How do we know that we're keeping up with that asset renewal program so that we don't create future backlog?
Thank you. Through the chair, we have some good information on our asset renewals, and we have some quite sophisticated models that are used to model the renewal program. One of the initiatives that we looked at through the budget process was how we can get the most out of our renewals and analysing the performance of our assets against the maintenance and the investment that we're making. So staff update those models and monitor the condition of our assets on a regular basis, so we have a good finger on the pulse of how our assets are performing. So the numbers that are included in the renewal program reflect that information and that demonstrate that the assets will continue to perform at an acceptable level with that level of investment in there. As I said, though, it is something that we monitor on a regular basis, and we'll continue to do so. And if needed, we'll come back to council, with further reviews to that budget. But certainly the work that's been done this year, we're confident that those renewal numbers are appropriate for where we're at.
Great, thank you. And in terms of capital works, this might be one for Mr. Whittaker instead. How has our capital works program been prioritised to ensure infrastructure keeps up with that growth? So specifically, we've been talking about a $27 million in this budget for road reseal and rehab. And how is that prioritised across the region, given that we've been speaking about the thousands of kilometres of roads that we do have? How do we make sure that that is fair and equitable across the entire region?
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for the question. I think very similar to what Keith was just talking about, we have some really detailed modelling that gets input from the people out there doing inspections on a daily basis. We run through a number of scenarios to see what different opportunities there are for investments in different types of assets that we have. But we take a long-term view of balancing assets against new improvements as well.
Thank you. Thank you, because roads come up a lot in Division 1, just like they do in Division 5. So thank you for answering that. We have also been speaking about how the budget is helping with getting all of those connective pathways through. So I might call on Ms. Robertson now, because we've been talking about ensuring that our pathway and crossing upgrades align with our active transport plan and our vulnerable pedestrian program. So we've recently adopted our active transport plan. So how do we ensure that all of these pathways and connections and safety mechanisms that we've got in place, whether that be the VPP, capital works, minor works, how do we make sure that we're all on the same page with that? And how does that work across all departments in council to make sure all the priorities are correct?
Thank you, Councillor Broderick, for the question, and through you, Madam Mayor. I think what's important is Council did adopt the Active Transport Plan, so that's a refresh of the Active Transport new plan because the last plan was 2011, as we know, so it's a bit old in the tooth. That was a lot of the Active Transport Plan that we adopted was actually through resident feedback and consultation around where all the missing links are and how we can encourage people to be more connected across our region. So that's probably the basis of the Active Transport Plan. There are many, many programs now as a result of the Active Transport Plan that will feed into the Active Transport Plan. So the Vulnerable Persons Program is only one component, but there are other components where development might need to put a new path in to service that development to shopping centres or to other connected infrastructure, such as rail stations or so forth. There are a whole range through the capital program as well that we have connection of paths. So it's through a combination of the Vulnerable Persons Program through development applications where they're providing new infrastructure and through our Capital Works program. So we work very, very closely with Scott and his team on where those missing links are and where new paths need to go in terms of our region.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not sure who wants this question, but yeah. So one of the, we've spoken about, these are the questions that our community asks of us, where do our rates go? And one of those questions I get most often, and I'm sure our colleagues do around the table, is how is our waste levy spent? And where does that money go? And what does a new waste strategy look like for the future if that's what is part of the line? There's a line in there for our budget for that one. Sorry, Deb.
That's okay. I will thank you, Councillor Broderick, for the question through you, Madam Mayor. I will attempt to answer the second part of that question, which is around waste strategy, and then I might leave the levies for one of my colleagues. So with regards to the waste strategy, at the moment, we do have a strategy around waste, but it is not a comprehensive strategy. We need to really have a look at the future of waste. There is a lot of moving parts in this space with waste. We know that there's work being undertaken by a whole range of other councils and ComSec and basically the state government around waste as well. So we need to kind of pull all the threads of our waste strategy together. We have bits and pieces of it across council, but we don't have a culmination of a strategy that actually speaks to what the future of waste needs to look like, and in terms of particularly what land we may require and what combination of waste outcomes we may need to look at for the future of our region. It's got to be a comprehensive strategy that talks to a range of things. It's not just whether it's our food organics, garden organics, our general waste or our recyclables. We need to have a look at all of those things in unison across the whole of the region. Levy, I'm not sure I can answer the levy question. I'm sorry, Councillor Broderick.
It looks as though our Chief Financial Officer has the great opportunity to answer this question. Thank you, Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll have an attempt at that. So the waste levy is levied on all of the waste that goes into our council's landfills. It's a levy established by the state government, and that money is passed directly to the state government. Some of it is returned to us for what's called municipal solid waste, which is basically the household rubbish collection. So we receive a rebate from the state government of some of the levy collected for that waste. However, the value of that rebate has been diminishing over a number of years. So ultimately, our residents are paying a greater contribution to the disposal of waste at our facilities. So the state government managed that levy. It's something that we must charge and we must pass that through to our customers. So I trust that answers your question.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Keith, and thanks, Deb. We've talked a lot about the rates today, and we're looking at a general rate increase of 9.7% across the majority of our residents. And we've also acknowledged that this is difficult to swallow and it's been a difficult process. Can I just ask, Keith, what payment options are available for those who need support among our community?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question, Councillor Broderick, through you, Madam Mayor. Ratepayers are encouraged to contact council if at all they have any difficulty paying their rates, and the sooner that they do that, we can come to a suitable arrangement. But as a matter of course, ratepayers are able to take up our instalment plan, provided that they do that before the rates are due, and they have, the 6 months to pay their rates in instalments and before the next rates notice is issued. But on a case-by-case basis, if people are having difficulty paying, again, I encourage them to contact us directly. There are also a range of direct debit facilities available, and again, that takes, I guess, the thinking process out of it, and it can automate those processes, so we can support people with that as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just thought that was important to highlight. And I think I've got just my last question, which is, after answering all these questions, it means my speech is done for me. So thank you for that. So Ms. Want might want to come and answer this one for us, because one of the things that we've been working on as council is ensuring that our budget is transparent, that we're accountable to it, and that everyone across the region can see where their money is going and how it's being spent. And one of the things that we've been working on, and the comms team have been working on in particular, has been a new micro website. Ms. Want, could you tell us about that, please?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you.
Welcome to the microphone today, Ms. Want. Over to you.
Thank you. Brilliant question, and one that as a team we're really proud of around this initiative to really increase transparency for the public. There's been some great examples out there across government about how we can bring, the community into where our budget and where our services are being delivered and the performance around that. So with the launch of this budget, we have a thing called a microsite, which is our source of truth around how every dollar of our budget is being spent. And through that, we really hope that in a simple way, the community can see where geographically the budget's going and where across our 114 sub-services the budget is going, up to those high-level services. And we hope that through that there'll be a level of transparency that will exist in the future that hasn't in the past around performance. So whether it's trying to understand the performance around the lawn that's been mown in our parks, or whether it relates to any other of our services, that's something that we'll be launching, and we'll be building on that iteratively, responding to feedback from the community around what works for them and what they'd like to see in the future. So something we're really excited about.
Thank you. And when does that go live?
That'll be going live this afternoon.
Sensational.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might speak not that I have to do much, because thank you to all of the ELT who've been able to answer those questions for us, because like all of our colleagues have said here today, this has been a long and difficult process for us. But one of the things that I have appreciated above all this year is, unlike other years that we've been looking at our budgets, is that councillors have had a greater understanding, and we've spent more time going through all of the budget process with our CEO and ELT and our managers, just to understand where all of that money is going and how it needs to be prioritised. And I know for me personally, that has been a really valuable process in being able to do that. It's not a perfect budget, as we've spoken about, but it is a great start in the right direction. So we know that every member of our organisation has had to make careful and often uncomfortable decisions about what we prioritise, what we defer, and how we continue delivering those services that the community relies on. Whilst it's not perfect, we are voting for a budget that puts us on a corrective path, so we can continue to deliver the services that the community deserves well into the future. Like we've said before, we are not the only council who is experiencing this across Queensland, as we see escalation in construction costs, delivery of services. Just like our households, council is not immune to those price increases. So it was important that we get the foundation right in this budget. Our region is growing really quickly, and I'm just going to throw it out there that I think Division 1 is growing at the fastest rate across the Sunshine Coast. With that growth comes pressure on our roads, our parks, our pathways, our community facilities, and our frontline services. And this budget reflects the reality of that growth and the responsibility we have to ensure that it's managed effectively and appropriately. Just like we've spoken about today with Council delivers 114 sub-services, and many of them are visible, like the roads and the parks and the libraries and the lawn mowing, but many of them are the non-sexy services people don't see. I just wanted to use that word here, because the stormwater networks are under our feet. The drainage systems that protect our home, the pipes, the pumps and culverts that keep our towns functioning. These are the things that we only hear about when they fail, but they're the things that need the maintenance and the money spent on them. And so when we see those lines in our budget that we don't always understand, that is a lot of the maintenance cost going to those things that ensure that all of our stormwater works the way that it should be. So we are experiencing fast change in Division 1. We've got new families moving in. In fact, Aura is growing at a rate of 70 houses a month at the moment. And we've got major government projects underway all around us with the B2N and the WAVE, and that brings mixed feelings through our division, our region. It's uncertainty for some and excitement for others, but while those pieces of essential infrastructure are being built, council really needs to be able to build those services around them so that we can connect into those. And that budget, with the help of the state government for some areas, allows us to do that. We need footpaths to get to school, the crossings that keep the kids safe, and we need to ensure that we get those as we need them and that they're prioritised. So that was one of the reasons I asked Deb about the VPP and how that aligns with our active transport plan, because it's essential that we provide safe pathways for our kids and our most vulnerable in our really fast growing estates and divisions as well. And that planning is critical. So there's some, even with the difficulty that this budget has, there are still some wins in there for Division 1, and we're going to have all of those on our new microsite that the comms team have been working on really diligently. But in there for Division 1, we will be seeing those connective pathways that we've been pushing for, a lot of those which are really important. We've got upgrades to parks. We've got a very long-awaited start of a neighbourhood, actually a district park for Peachester, who've been patiently waiting for a really long time, and so stage 1 of that will start. We've also had a massive push in Glasshouse Country and in the hinterland for a pump track that they don't have. On the other side, they're seeing them going in lots of other places and not their own home, but I'm very excited to say that we've got stage 1 happening of that in this next financial year as well.
Councillor Broderick, would you like an extension of time?
That would be great, thank you.
Councillor Burns, seconded Councillor Dixon. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor.
I just also wanted to point out that with the difficulties that we've got as far as cost of living goes, we talk about our households and our rates and our residents as we should, but I just also wanted to put out there that our businesses are really doing it tough at the moment too. Some of them are really feeling the pressure of the rising costs, supply pressures and workforce challenges affecting them every day. So Council wants to be able to continue to support our businesses through clear communication, which was one of the reasons I also asked about flexible payment arrangements, and it'll also encourage our businesses to get in contact with our Economic Development Department as well, just to see if there are other ways that our Council can continue to support our businesses through somewhat difficult times. I also wanted to ensure that you all jump onto the microsite as soon as we're finished with our budget meeting today so that you can get out there. Just a shout out to our comms team as well, who've been able to pull things together very quickly and get some great information out there. There are videos to come, there's presentations to come, and it's been a lot of work. So I just wanted to just let them know how much they're valued. So thank you. Division 1 is changing quickly, but with thoughtful planning, strong advocacy and a clear focus so we can ensure that change strengthens our towns rather than overwhelms them is our goal. So this budget reflects responsible planning and clear priorities. It positions us to manage growth sensibly, protect services and places the services and places our community relies on, and to continue delivering what matters, supported by the right investments in our communities and the infrastructure they rely on. We have to get the balance right. This is just the start. And I just wanted to thank all of the staff and our councillors and all of those who've been involved in making these difficult decisions and getting the ball rolling. So thank you. And thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick. You're right, this is just the start. Councillor Natoli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the contribution of all of the councillors so far that have made comments about this budget. I don't think any of us believe that today would be a comfortable day for us because we acknowledge how tough it is out there within our communities. And like Councillor Winston, this is the toughest budget. Maybe the one that came the closest was my second budget with the Maroochy Shire Council, where we almost at one point didn't have enough money to pay our staff. And that really is about how we manage our finances. It's about making sure that we run operational surpluses and not running operational deficits. And I think it was a real shock for all of us last year when we had to delay the budget, realising that for 5 years at least, we've been actually running operational deficits when we all believed that we were running operational surpluses. And of course, I know, Madam Mayor, you and the councillors that were elected in this term were not responsible for this, but we, as a collective group of councillors today, have the responsibility to fix what we've been left with. I also know that, you know, we've spent a lot of time going through a completely different budget process this time to try and get a lot more visibility and a lot more skin in the game in regards to council's input. And as was mentioned previously, we probably had in excess of 15 days, full days, workshops and half days as well. And it's interesting that going through that process, how different a lot of us as councillors actually perceive different services and the priorities that we did place on many of the services, in fact, all of the services. So it really does reflect a clear advantage of having so many people who come from different parts of our community that really can have input so that we can pick up all of those differences and make sure that we cover all of those bases. But just to show that collectively we can still come and make decisions as councillors for the region. And I know that in the past, I've always been a regional thinker. When I got elected in nearly 30 years ago, Maroochy Shire Council took on the role of being a chairman of the Maroochy Bushland Botanic Gardens, and we only celebrated 30 years of the Friends' involvement in that garden a couple of weeks ago. And I made sure that funding and commitments to that garden, even though it wasn't my division, it was my job to make sure we delivered an outstanding asset. And look at it today. That is just an incredible. And I chaired that committee for 7 years. So when we talk about divisions, I understand my division, Division 4, has the #1 tourism destination, Mooloolaba, has the only greenfield CBD in the country, the new city centre. It is a community that shares many of its assets. Our public assets are shared by everybody, tourists, others that live in other divisions. And my residents understand that. it's uncomfortable for them at times to have to share that division with so many other people, but we open our doors and collectively allow. I know a lot of money's been spent, and I totally agree with Councillor Bernard that over the maybe the last 10 or so years that maybe the budget hasn't been always fair in the way the capital works, but I as a local councillor have not been the clear driver for a lot of the investment that has come into this division. A lot of it was decisions that were made by previous councils, in particular things like the mass transit coastal corridor, that project, Benning Street, Wayland Street, Brisbane Road upgrades, even the Mooloolaba foreshore, all were attributed to that sort of desire to build that transit corridor. And of course, those roads needed widening. Even the Tuckers Bridge was upgraded to be able to take light rail. Investments of millions of dollars extra into supporting that heavy infrastructure there. I didn't make that decision. I didn't support that corridor. I supported the budgets because we needed our services to be supported. But those projects were massive costs and overspending that went through this to the point of where we find ourselves today. I also understand that, things like the Residential Activation Fund that the state government, $84 million that they brought into our budgets, and that we now need to drive infrastructures such as the upgrades of Sugar Road and Maud Street.
Councillor Natoli, would you like an extension of time?
Yes, please.
Yes. Councillor Dixon and Councillor Bunag. I'll put the motion to the vote. Thank you. That's unanimous. Carried.
And even First Avenue, it's connecting the old city centre and the new city centre. But I also, in my 18th year of local government, have seen where massive investment in public infrastructure, that area will go from 40 metres to 60 metres under the draft town plan, that I can see, and I know that investment will come because of the amount of money that council puts in there. I also have seen over the decades the underinvestment that can happen. So if you don't get it right, you can overspend and find yourself in the situation that we've find ourselves now, but you can also underinvest. And we've seen the Sunshine Coast struggle from the lack of investment, state government in particular and federal government. And only because of the new LNP and maybe the Olympics that have come in that we're now starting to see the catch up and how, many of the major projects that we never thought that we'd see and been waiting for 30 plus years, like the Camp Coast Corridor, the train going to Batinia, and now the wave coming into Maroochydore. We're seeing other major investments of the government's, the Mooloolaba River interchange. We're seeing other congestion busting projects, the indoor arena that will give us a convention and exhibition centre. These are things that our community have done without. But it also shows you that when you don't invest properly and you don't have your budgets right, that you can suffer as a community dramatically. And then you talked about the increased costs, Madam Mayor. I mean, we often, as a council, understand that the obligations that other levels of government are placing on us and things that we have to deal with. Homelessness is a massive issue for us, and our resources have been taken up by that. And, my sympathy goes out there for those people who are struggling to be able to put a roof over their head. But our community expect us to also take up the slack, and we are. But other levels of government have got to help, because we are taking on a lot of issues that are related to other level of government's responsibilities and even their decision making. E-devices on footpaths have taken a lot of resources from me. Storage vehicles on council roads, Airbnbs in residential areas. These are all things that the state government policies allow to happen, but take up an enormous amount of my resources as a councillor and also our staff as well. Madam Mayor, I know it's a difficult budget. I know that we've got incredible commitment to get things right now. It's our responsibility. We can't shirk that. We could take the easy roads and we'll only find ourselves digging ourselves in more deeper holes than we'd ever want to go. It's the responsible thing. But when people talk about the increases in rates, have a look at how much your household pays in income tax collectively in other levels of taxes like GST. And even when you fuel up, there's two taxes there, the excise tax as well as the GST that goes on top of that. We pay a lot of taxes in this country, but I think when you really look at a household, how much a household pays for all the services that local government provides compared to the amount of taxes that they pay for federal and state governments, it's insignificant in the total amount of taxes that people pay. Put that in proportion, and councillors, I hope that we all support this budget and get behind this organisation, and we are making the tough decisions, but I know they are the right decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Natoli. Councillor Burns.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My speech is only 22 minutes long, so we should be all done and dusted very soon.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
Over the weekend, I had the privilege of going through a couple of different parts of our region, and it struck me so how diverse our region is. I spent time down on Friday down in Beerburrum in Division 1, and there's some big significant works happening down there. Saturday I was up in Kenilworth, as I mentioned earlier, and was blown away again by the incredible pastoralist properties that we have out there and people raising cattle and growing stuff that we need. And then I actually even took a little funny detour up down one of our gravel roads that turned into actually just a single lane bush track. And it was only halfway up it when I realised it was a 4-wheel drive track and I shouldn't have been there. But it was beautiful and remote and rugged. And I thought, my gosh, we live in a pretty good area. And then I was actually also able to see hot rod cars driving around the streets of Caloundra in the most urban setting with a town that was full of a buzz. And it really did strike me that we live in a really diverse and distinct region, but one that's also got so much character and a diversity of life to it. No wonder people want to come and live here. And so while we have been meeting and talking about this budget since August, our community haven't. While this budget is important and it does actually outline and set the key responsibilities and requirements that this council will need to deliver over the next 12 months, our community actually would like us to continue just to get on with it. And so our best stated and passionate principles and ideas and the things that we would like to holler about actually might matter, but ultimately we're judged and our community will hold us to account to whether or not we actually just get the small things right. And that is actually the intent of the budget. The intent is to actually deliver value for money to our residents, seeking to actually act responsibly as a council, making tough decisions, finding efficiencies and tightening our belts, as I think you may have said, Madam Mayor. And those decisions and those discussions are painful and they will be difficult. But it doesn't just start here and end here. It will have to continue over the coming years if we're going to continue to operate as a council that is well regarded, a council that does deliver exceptionally high service to this community. I've had a number of residents who've moved from interstate come to me over the last number of months and just say, we cannot believe the level of service that this council gives. We cannot believe the standard of service in the parks, your bathrooms, that you have soap dispensers that are clean, that you have drink taps, that there's showers, that there's free barbecues, that there's all these good things. They said, we can't believe it. They can't believe that actually us as elected representatives at council are available to them. This council does deliver so much. Now, does it mean we're a perfect organisation? By no way. And will we be? No, we won't. And will we continue to make decisions that people won't agree with? Absolutely. That is the nature of the beast. And so my, I guess, encouragement in all of this is, while we're spending lots of money to deliver exceptional services and capital projects that are required, let's not forget that actually it will be those ongoing small things being available and present, being open to listen, being the ability for us to be agile enough to make the decisions and the challenging decisions that might be required along the way, whether it's at BR1 or BR2 or whatever it might be. Thank you for the work that's gone into delivering all of this. And for Division 3, I look forward to telling you a little bit more about it over the coming days. encourage you and every other resident to check out the microsite. If you're interested in this, get into the detail. It is all there for you to see. Nothing of it. It is hidden. It is all there. And I'm really grateful to be part of this organisation and to represent this community, because I think the future is going to be good. It will be uncomfortable and challenging in the short term, but I reckon if we buckle up, you too will be able to go from that gravel road to that bush track over many bumps and still find your way out at Mapleton, and maybe even just stop for a good feed at the Mapleton pub. So thanks, Madam Mayor, to the councillors, thank you, and to the CEO and to the ELT, thanks for your efforts in getting us to this point. And to our staff, thank you for the incredible work that you are doing now, have done over the last year, and that you'll continue to do over the next 12 months. Thanks, Madam Mayor. That's 5 minutes.
Thanks, Councillor Burns. That was 5 minutes to the dot, so you have another 17 to fill in to your promise. So thankfully not. Okay. Councillor Johnston, did you have a question? Because you've already spoken.
Yes, that's right. I've got a question. I've also got a personal explanation.
Right. A question?
The question to our Chief Financial Officer is, when we look at the long-term financial forecast for our financial position, it shows that the cash and investments next financial year, at the end of the financial year, is estimated to be 284 million. And then it rapidly declines to 181 million, or 182 million in 2030, and increases significantly to almost 400 million by 2036. Could you just like to explain how that fluctuates like that? Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Parsons, you're looking forward to answering this one.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for the question, Councillor, through you, Madam Mayor. So our cash balance will reflect the activities of the council year on year, and there's significant investment in capital programs, particularly over the next 5 years in the lead up to the Olympics, and there's some very large projects underway at the moment. Our extent of borrowings, also influences the balance of cash that we have left over, and we have the benefit at the moment of some of the advance payments we've received on grants that we're lining up to spend over the next year or so. In particular, the Residential Activation Fund, we had a significant contribution. So the balance of those investments, will ebb and flow with the activity of council. We look to the future forecast to determine our level of borrowings, and we only draw down those borrowings when we need to support our position. As we move into a surplus position, which this current forecast indicates, we have some additional funds available for us as insurance against, extreme weather events or other unforeseen circumstances, and to support our capital program without borrowing additional funds, for example. So there's some of the benefits of moving into that position. We're certainly not in an absolutely flush position. There's still work to do, in particular over the next 5 years, but we need to, maintain, close eye, on our financial position, and keep a steady hand on the wheel as we move forward to keep control of those expenses and to try and, manage the impact on our ratepayers ongoing.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. The personal explanation I'd like to make relates to an article that was published in the Sunshine Valley.
Councillor Johnston, that might be best at the ordinary meeting, at the next ordinary meeting.
It's in the frequently asked questions, and I think I'm not going to, I'll be making an apology then.
Okay.
However, what I'd just like to say is,
okay, you may continue.
What I wasn't able to say on that night was that, yes, we have to tailor our budgets over the next 10 years, but I wasn't able to say that there'll be some changes to recurrent expenditure, but the major issue is that our wish list over the next 10 years for capital works was just that. It was a wish list, and we worked really hard during the year to sort it all out so that things were taken out, things were moved forward.
And that's how we have achieved over the next 10 years the result. And it's people are not being disadvantaged. We haven't been mismanaging things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillors, you've spoken about projects that you're proud of, been critical of aspects that made you uncomfortable, and together we will be accountable. Our work does continue. This is just the start, but we do have a clear plan to return us to a surplus, as our community would expect and deserve, as we reset the organisation, tighten our belts and find efficiencies, put our money to what our community tells us matters most. Our thanks to the CEO, CFO, executive, all of our staff, to the Deputy Mayor and councillors, to you all, my sincere thanks. The Sunshine Coast is one of the most remarkable places in this country, and they expect their council to match their energy for that thriving location with genuine stewardship and genuine delivery. We are making tough decisions with a clear plan and a united resolve. Again, we're not yet where we need to be financially, but this budget takes the step in the right direction towards a brighter future. I thank you for your contributions to date, and I commend this budget to the Council and look forward to your support. Councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote to adopt the 2026-27 budget. All those in favour? And the budget is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you to all of the staff and all of the officers for all of your contributions. That concludes today's agenda, so I will declare the meeting closed at 1:33. I invite you, councillors, to join me and the media in the foyer for a press conference, and noting our next ordinary meeting will be held on Thursday, the 18th of June at 9 a.m. Thank you for those of you joining us in the gallery, online and here in the chamber today. Thank you and have a very good afternoon.